appointed from both political parties to the upper house, also known as the Senate. And there are 63 members of parliament that we, the people, elect to the lower house, also known as the House of Representatives. To pass a law, there is a minimum of 6 stages required in each house. The process can begin in the upper house by a senator or in the lower house by your member of parliament. And their proposals for a new bill can certainly start with you, the citizen. Now, since the process often begins in the House of Representatives, let's start there. 1. The first stage begins with the introduction by the minister responsible for the bill, followed by the first reading of the bill by the clerk to the houses. This clerk is more like the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer for the Parliament. An announcement of the bill is published in the Gazette. This is a public newsletter that the government uses to inform the citizens of what the Parliament is doing on your behalf. 2. The second reading begins with a summary of the bill by the minister. The main reasons for the bill are discussed both by the government and opposition members to determine if Jamaicans would really be better off with the new law or changes to an existing law. A vote is taken by the House to determine if the bill will move to the committee stage. Sometimes before going to that stage, the minister responsible for the bill can recommend the use of a joint select committee. It's called joint as its members are taken from both the upper and lower house. To benefit from greater consultation, the committee is empowered to invite the public to share their views of the bill in writing or in person, and does so through radio, TV, and newspaper adverts. This joint select committee submits its recommendations to the House of Representatives. The House debates this report, and a vote is taken to determine if the bill should go on to the committee stage, where it is examined by a committee of the whole House. Yes, that's the name. And that's what it is, a committee of all the members of Parliament that carefully examines each clause and makes improvements to ensure the bill will achieve its objectives. As chairman, the Speaker of the House monitors the process to make sure the rules of the House are obeyed and the process moves along smoothly. 4. The Committee of the whole House examines the bill clause by clause, then sends its recommendations for changes to the House of Representatives. This is called the report stage. 5. The bill then passes to the third reading to allow a final opportunity for MPs to make changes before it is sent to senators in the upper house. 6 to 10. In the upper house, the senators go through the same steps we just described. If any changes are made, the bill has to be returned to the House of Representatives for their discussion and approval. Now, if the bill had started in the upper house, it would also have to be returned to them for approval of any changes made by the lower house. 11. Throughout the entire process, the bill is being checked by the Legislative Council. That's the Parliament's lawyer. But before the last step, a copy is sent to the Attorney General of Jamaica for final review and certification. 12. If all is well, the bill is sent to receive the royal assent from the Governor General as the representative of the Queen, Elizabeth II. The bill is now an Act of Parliament. The Act is gazetted, and the rights of Jamaicans are further preserved and protected by a new law.
Hi, how are you?
The Speaker at Burke.
Almighty God, by whom alone kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we, thine unworthy servants, here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that, we having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all the private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public weal, peace, and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
You may be seated. This honorable house is called to resume its sitting. This honorable house now resumes its sitting. Call of the roll.
Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Oldest, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Samuda, Ms. Grange, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Malawu Fort, Dr. Tufton, Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Mr. Charles, Mr. Green, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Terry Long, Ms. Smith, Dr. Dunn, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Main, Mr. Davis, Mr. Witter, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown Burke, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Clark, Mr. Cousins, Ms. Crawford, Ms. Daley, Ms. Davis, Mr. Goldin, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Ms. Hamilton, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Henriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Ms. Lee, Dr. Brown Burke, Mr. Miller, Mr. Montague, Ms. Morrison, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Siblist, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wright.
Statement by ministers.
Madam Speaker, there are no formal statements today. As we indicated at the sitting yesterday, today's activities will continue the sectoral debates. But just to indicate that there will be 3 speakers today, a kind of unprecedented situation in the context of how the debates have been going. And we would urge that members do take note of the fact that there are 3 speakers and consequently ensure that the time management that has sometimes been a little missing will be very present today so that we can get through the full business of the House in good time. Madam Speaker, the hope that we have as we move forward is to conclude our debates next Wednesday and then to proceed thereafter to deal with the matters on the order paper, the questions and answers to questions, the motions, as well as to activate very rigorously the committees that are to work on the basis of availability of, as you know, space and time, but to ensure that we close the session with a good level of rigor, getting through much of the business that we have, so that when we break for summer and return and go into the constituency, state of the constituency debate, we could move that fully through and then continue further the other business that are on the order paper. Madam Speaker, we are ensuring that we have a structured approach to the whole management of this process so that it goes as seamlessly and effectively as possible. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thanks, House Leader. Announcements?
Laid on the table of the House today is a copy of the report of the Commissioner of Police for the period January 2021 to April 2022 from the Jamaica Constabulary Force.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions, motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice, motions relating to the sitting of the House, motions for leave to introduce bills, presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained, public business. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, in public business, it is intended to continue the sectoral debate, as we had indicated. And today's speakers are the Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, our Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, and he will be followed by the Member of Parliament for St. Catherine Eastern, Ms. Joyce. Not Joyce, is it Joyce?
Joyce.
Daley? Joyce,
Daley.
is Joyce?
Joyce Daley.
Wow, interesting. And, and of course, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, the member from St. Andrew, Southwestern. May it please you, Madam Speaker, to invite the Minister of National Security.
I invite Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, Honorable Dr. Horace Chang, to speak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, Madam Speaker, I'll do first. I recognize that we are conducting this sectoral, what is towards the tail end of the pandemic. We have had 2 years which placed significant challenges on the country, all institutions of government. And there is supposed to be a third wave, but not as of the viral infection, as opposed to the pandemic, which I know caused even members of this House, friends and family, lots of friends and family. We extend our sympathy to those and contact, but the country pulled through. We give credit to those who worked on the front line to keep us in good order. I know, to Madam Speaker, I've been put to speak with 3 speakers, which is unusual. But I think there's like a conspiracy, Madam Speaker. I get 2 ladies following me, and I think everybody on this side always know. And I have a sympathy for female leadership. Including one of my favorite MPs. I have to complain. Today, Madam Speaker, I also make this is my 5th presentation in this as a sectoral debate on this portfolio, and the 5th year of this government in charge of the Ministry of National Security. I assumed portfolio responsibility in this ministry 4 years ago, and so did the newly appointed Commissioner of Police. Well, a little smarter than I did, I must confess. I took charge on the 1st of April. He made sure he came in the week before. Right? But it's a time when, in fact, the government of the country, led by Prime Minister Andrew Michael Horace, had decided to prioritize security, given the state of criminal activity in the country, and support the institutional reorganization that was required, and as well as providing the budgetary support. So today, I'm going to approach my presentation as a report on what we have done, what we're currently doing, and what we are committed to getting done. That is what we have made budgetary commitments for, while accepting that the COVID-19 pandemic had impaired activities for some 2 years. Madam Speaker, I'd like to give thanks to the Almighty for His blessings, His grace, and His protection over the 4 years. Special acknowledgement and thanks to our Prime Minister, Honourable Andrew Horace, for his continued confidence in allowing me to serve in this capacity. I wish to commend him for his steady and visionary leadership, especially during times of difficulty. I wish to recognize my cabinet colleagues, the members of Parliament on both sides of the aisle, with whom I've had the pleasure of working to improve the lives of Jamaicans over the past year. I want to really express my gratitude to Senator Matthew Samoud, who served as Minister without portfolio up to January of this year. Commend him for the service he gave, and allow me to welcome to the team in the Ministry of National Security Mr. Xavier Main, MP from St. Anne, as my Minister of State. He has approached his responsibility with passion and zeal, and he has quickly won the confidence of the people in the ministry. He will be a very good minister, and very soon he will assume the call to the pride to assume wider responsibility. Like everyone else who comes to the ministry, he of course has quite a different perspective on security after getting a chance to see it. But unlike many, he's not looking to leaving. Right? Let me thank my permanent secretary, Mr. Courtney Williams, and the senior management team and staff for their continued support and dedicated service in advancing the policy and program of the ministry. My sincere gratitude to the heads of the various agencies and their staff, as well as the board chairmen and the members of the board within the security architecture. I thank you for your commitment and invaluable contribution to the safety and security of the country. Special recognition and thanks to the constituents of the great constituency of North West St. James, who continue to express their confidence in my leadership. I am eternally grateful. May I mention the names of the leadership of that constituency. At the council level, Senator Charles Sinclair, Mayor Leroy Williams, Councillor Joshua Cummings and David Brown. I wish to acknowledge my outstanding management team, led by Mr. Norman Brown, as well as the many party workers who have continued to give us outstanding support and continue the political management of that constituency. The members of the civil society and community groups, leaders of industry and commerce, along with the church leaders, you have all played a critical role in the development of North West St. James, which is centered around urban Montego Bay, and the civic community plays a critical role in that constituency. Finally, let me express my special thanks to my wife, Paulette, my children, Melissa, and Mark. My daughter Melissa is in the audience, and for the unceasing support and understanding. You have your love and your prayers that helped me through these difficult times. Madam Speaker, I give an overview of what I intend to go to. The book is thick, but it's because the printing, the fonts are big. I will finish by 6 o'clock, I assure you. There are some others around. You'll get the other documentation soon. The minister administers 9 agencies within the country's security architecture. However, the public's primary focus is on the Jamaica Constabulary Force. And correctly so, the Jamaica Constabulary Force has the responsibility for law enforcement across all Jamaica, and is the primary agency so responsible and the largest body there. The Jamaica JCF is carrying out its crime management and public order responsibility, however, relies on support from the Jamaica Defence Force, operationally, and the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency, and the Institute of Forensic Science and Legal Medicine for intelligence and investigative support. All of the agencies do contribute to our security success, include PICA, Passport, Immigration and Citizenship, plays a crucial role in border security, the Firearms Licensing Authority, which I'll say not much now. We have a bill to bring to the House very soon, but it's part of our responsibility and a very key agency, the Department of Correctional Service, the Private Security Regulatory Authority, the Police Civilian Oversight Authority, and the Caribbean Regional Drug Law Enforcement Training Center. My presentation today, however, will be in 4 parts and focus primarily on the Jamaica Conservative Force and the immediate supporting agencies. As indicate on our work in building out of the law enforcement capacity of the JCF over the last 4 years in particular, by highlighting the significant investments we have made. I will then highlight the critical areas of the criminal landscape to engender greater appreciation of the approach we are taking and to address the epidemic criminal violence and to give a better understanding of the challenges faced by the security forces and, in a sense, to educate the wider public. I will emphasize, too, the social investment program we have introduced in coordination with the various agencies of government, but where the Ministerial of National Security Crime Prevention Unit plays a leading role. A program which is designed to strengthen the social services available to our most vulnerable and to give them hope and restore their dignity. I will conclude by highlighting some of the critical legislative tools that we have brought to the table, as well as those that are currently in the near legislative pipeline. And I'll make comments on that, Madam Speaker, because I've learned a lot in how fast it can get to bring quality legislation to the House. Madam Speaker, in particular over the last 4 years, the government has invested heavily in the security forces. JSCF being our premier law enforcement entity continues to see significant transformational changes. The Police High Command is executing the government's policy to modernize and transform the police force. We are now better prepared to ensure public safety and reverse the criminal violence that plagues the society. I'll first deal with the organizational restructuring, which was crucial to position the police and the police that it should be. Primary among the activities has been the development of several new formations with the force. It's intended to better serve the people of Jamaica while meeting the professional needs of the force. The first one I'll mention is that for the first time, the JDF has a technology branch, a technology formation, headed by an assistant commissioner. There's the responsibility of managing technology transformation of the force, as well as directing it in this global digital era. It's amazing that many years, it was not until 2019, under this government, that the police force got a technological branch. And I will go to demonstrate. Since it launched in 2019, the branch has facilitated and coordinated a number of technology projects geared at improving operational efficiency and the service delivery. It boasts a team of highly skilled technical professionals, police officers all, in the fields of communication, technology, electronic cybersecurity, who are focused on ensuring that this aspect of the force is optimally developed. It is quite amazing, I said, Madam Speaker, that this is until 2019 this was done. Second department I want to refer to is the development of a welfare department, which reports directly to the Commissioner and acts as a single focal point for the coordination of staff welfare matters. This is the first time a systemic attempt has been made to develop a welfare section in the police force. First time. See, the intervention include coordination and resolution of medical care for members who are injured on the job or become ill, getting their pension after retirement, seniority payments, death benefit claims, and issues relating to transfer. Take years. The years ministers would acquire a consultant here and there, but to the ad hoc operation. Under this government, a systemic approach is being made to correct this problem, which upsets and, in fact, hurts the morale of the force. So, Madam Speaker, I came upon this very early and in that asked for some changes which are being done now, and not only reflect the change the government is doing, but also the challenges sometimes have in doing quality change in government. But the very first week after I became minister, I went to KPH, and an officer who had taken part in apprehending the residue of the ski mask gang was hit. Well, 2 of them were injured. One was injured badly, smashing his right arm. And he was in KPH for over 2 weeks awaiting some word that somebody will find enough money between the Federation and begging the ministry to intervene, enough money to pay for a pin for his arm. He was a brave police officer, highly qualified, highly trained in intercepting a marauding criminal, a murderer, well known, shot, and he was lying in a bed for weeks, not get an answer whether he would get a pin for his arm. We took steps to correct it on a hot basis, and it was done quickly, but it is important that we establish a systemic system, and I spoke to the permanent secretary and the commissioner who was with me, and today we have started the process. A protocol was signed by at least with the University Hospital to see for priority treatment of police officers when they get to hospital. And we are moving to establish this protocol with all the health service, and including this will be a media program which the police officers will be able to use on their smartphone and instrument that come to later when they are in. The welfare and health of officers are crucial. And they are scattered across the island. The police has 200 facilities, 186 stations, so the system has to be efficient and national. Part of the process too, we established the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch, which is well known, the police officers and the yellow bikes on the road, and the branch has fostered significant improvement in traffic management. We have a way to go, and I'll come to that later. Additionally, there have been responsible for the expansion of the quick response teams in the urban sectors. The mobile reserve was dismantled for a number of reasons which are known. Special operation team was established. It's designed to create a team of highly disciplined and paramilitary unit of the force capable of the rapid deployment in potentially high violence situations and dealing with highly violent criminals. Since its establishment, there has been significant investment in the unit, which covers infrastructure development, mobility, surveillance capabilities, and continuous tactical training in their development. The special ops teams and recently launched with the special ops teams will be the joint anti-gang task force, which involves some military personnel, have significantly impacted the criminal landscape through interruption of gang activities, the seizure of illegal firearms and ammunition, and interdiction of wanted persons across the island. These formations are at the forefront of the thrust to rid the country of illegal guns, gunmen, and gangs. As part of the force long-term strategy to ensure they can remain on the cutting edge of policing, the Force Development and Logistics Department was established, headed by a Deputy Commissioner of Police at this time. Responsible for this reform, modernization, as well as continuous development in technology, research, and support, and for, as I said, continued maintenance of the police and the cutting edge of all policing activity. An interesting section of the force, the inspectorate, what was once called no man's land. We have created the Inspectorate and Professional Standards Oversight Branch of the police. The police, headed by a Deputy Commissioner, now currently an acting Deputy Commissioner, I think is the ACP, with this designed to ensure there's internal capacity in the force to deal with complaints of corruption and self-regulate the quality of the force. We cannot oversee a highly professional body, highly specialized by external elements who neither understand the culture or understand policing. And that department is doing an excellent job, I approve. It continues to promote integrity, ethics, and professionalism on the force. And it's reflected in many activities which I've seen sometimes the commissioners renewing certain contracts are designed to remove the minority of infiltrators in the force that undermine the image and integrity of the force. The full members of the force, by far, over 99%, are hardworking professionals dedicated to restoring effective law enforcement. The minority who constitute a problem at one stage was being looked at by many people from elsewhere. The police has men and women with the integrity, the professional skills, and the commitment to ensure there are quality professional standards within the police force, and the IPOB team of police officers are doing an excellent job. For the first time, too, Madam Speaker, we have established a legal affairs department in the police. Right? The staff that decade of experience, bright, young civilian attorneys at this point in time. It's designed to assist in amending, not in amending relevant legislation, and help to guide prosecution. It plays a critical role in the quality of case files that the police are placing before the courts. It's something that's crucial in improving the effectiveness of law enforcement. At a very forefront, since there, they have developed, with of course the senior members of the police force, developed a 3,600-page digital, not another big book, right? The JCF Offenses, Points to Prove and Authorities Handbook 2021. This, Madam Speaker, as a comprehensive guide for police officers at all levels in the prosecution of cases. Of course, Madam Speaker, we're in the digital age, and a part of it is social media. And therefore, we have to deal with social media, which have the ability to send news items viral within seconds. Some of it good, some of it bad. In fact, when I last discussed this with a particular senior technical academic, he pointed out to me that in the first industrial revolution, the printing press was what led the way. But the result of the printing press, the first result of the printing press, and the first books printed were books on witchcraft, which led to the murder of a lot of our leading women of the day. Right? Today, fake news and social media is synonymous, and we have to, of course, deal with it in the fourth industrial revolution. Right? So the corporate communication unit was reorganized, restructured, and benefited from the addition of senior communication experts. Today, that unit, social media section, the JCF can boast of some 204,000 Instagram followers, over 193,000 followers on Facebook, and over 109,000 Twitter followers. This is important, Madam Speaker, because we know there's a legacy in Jamaica of trying to blame the police for everything. Almost everything. Anything that goes wrong, the first thing is that, things like traffic. Until we have introduced the ticket management system, which is now getting around to point out where the problems are, it just felt that the disorder on the road was because policemen own all the taxis. Poor police officers, they couldn't even buy the tires. But we blame them all of that. But it was crucial that we, in fact, have effective communication, even without the legacy of bad-mouthing the police, that they have effective communication to reach the wider public and to keep the public informed on activities, what is happening and how it is. Transparency is crucial in today's public service. In addition to that, we have reconfigured the Community Safety and Security branch. So it's been refocused and will play a critical role in the creation and maintenance of safe communities. The new leadership, re-energized, was given a mandate to institutionalize the concept of city security throughout the island. It's done through development of community partnerships and the expansion of community safety programs. In that area, we are in the process. The final changes in this area is to reconfigure our police areas. Jamaica's population have changed, urbanization have increased, and the criminal pathology has changed dramatically, so it was in discipline disorder. And yet we have retained the 5 areas that we have had since the beginning of time. And you end up in some extremely impractical situation. I'm not putting more than that. So Area 5 comprises St. Catherine, Northern St. Andrew, it was very rural at that time, into St. Thomas. So when you're on Washington Boulevard, if you're on the southeast side, you cannot talk to the police officer on the other side of the road on the radio, because that is Northern St. Andrew. And it does create operational challenges. So we're in fact looking at significant changes to further enhance our capacity to deal with it. So the 6 divisions in the corporate area with St. Thomas will become the metropolitan area. We'll have stronger leadership and coordination. And we have had the approval of the PIMC, the government's investment committee, to approve the expenditure required. All expenditures significant go through that process. That will also mean some reorganization outside of the corporate area, and they're very logical. St. Catherine and Clarendon, which is beside each other, and the interface in criminal is very well known. So the central and the south, St. Catherine, north, and Clarendon will become an area. And of course, we'll look at some changes further down in the west where the increased activity, not just criminal activity, but increased economic activity, increasing population and density, would justify St. James, Hanover, and Trelawney as a logical area, with Westmoreland being attached to St. Elizabeth and Manchester. The Kmart region is a critical change. It justifies, worldwide it becomes a matter of policy that municipalities have long recognized the need for unification of policing services with their metropolitan areas. St. Thomas, which is stretched to Daley, we may say that a bit far, but the entire Bull Bay area of Tialas is very much a part of the corporate area landscape. So it will give us significant operational improvement. Divisions in the Kingston and St. Andrew area, although operating in close proximity, have 6 independent divisional headquarters now. However, the Area 4 comprises 5 of them operating as a team. As I said, the concept has received approval of the Public Investment Management Committee, and therefore the expenditure is proceeding, and we expect to conclude that by the end of this financial year. Criminals operate seamlessly across the corporate area. We cannot have a police force operating in silos. Another area of significant change and investment, Mr. Speaker, beside the geographical is, and I indicated earlier, in the development of the technology formation, it was designed to ensure we bring the police operational activities into the 21st century. And there was, among the activities to date, we have instituted some 850 CCTV cameras in Kingston, Maypen, Mandeville, Horace, Negril, Montego Bay, Spanish Town, Santa Cruz, and Black River. For example, this year we'll complete another 300, primarily in the Kingston area and the corporate area, downtown Kingston and Stonehill, but we're currently examining the feasibility and the financial viability of building out the entire system, because it works extremely well and has proven to be vital as a tool in assisting the police. And we have seen some significant impact in the corporate areas is established. And we are therefore looking at how fast we can get this done. Because in doing it a bit piecemeal, you begin to get movement and dispersion. But we will establish the surveillance system across the entire island. But money is committed for the additional 300 in the corporate area, which we wish to complete during this year, irrespective of what happens. The ticket management system, we have instituted a new traffic ticket management system. And I'm going to pause on this now, Mr. Speaker, but I'm speaking. I want to say something which maybe not would be expected from a political directive. Disorder on our roads is one of the sure signs of indiscipline and disorder. And it is no question that if we can get appropriate quality order on our roadways, it will have an impact on the entire character of society. We set about to do this. The first time this was mentioned, Madam Speaker, in my research, was sometime in 1986 or 87, when one Colonel Charles was Minister of Transport. He's better known for his work with minibuses, but he announced a new electronic system. He, of course, changed his portfolios changed quite quickly, and then it went on to other ministers and just talked about. Very little was done. In fact, nothing was done by most. One minister, I think, actually seek to acquire a software for traffic ticket management, but it went nowhere. This government is ensuring that it's done. But it has taken 4 years, Madam Speaker. What I'm going to say now is that in my document, my speech. The first Road Safety Committee meeting I went to was a subcommittee of the National Road Safety Committee chaired by the Prime Minister. I was convinced why it takes, this is my reason why I think it takes 4 years. The team that was there consisted of 2 sets of government employees. One set was clearly out of their depth. I don't think they understood what electronic ticketing meant at all, but they were occupying the seats. Because the agencies were sending them there wanted to occupy the space, but I don't think there was the conviction or appreciation that we had to get this done. The other set too, I think, had the talent, but there was total cynicism. I must confess it took me at least 2 years to get buy-in, which is why we are here. Because I must confess the process. There are a number of agents to be involved. There's the Ministry of National Security, there's the police, there's eGov, and there's the courts management system. And in the end, I did get a very valuable ally in the court management system. Not the entire system, because the traffic courts are another story, but I must say it publicly. The head of court management, Ms. Cameron Anglin, has been a very, very powerful ally, work with the Chief Justice, and who have helped us to get this far. The fact is, when we started getting into it in the railway, there was some 340,000 tickets in the court system which could not be accounted for. Therefore, no warrants could be issued because nobody was sure whether they were paid or unpaid or anything. That's the kind of backlog. The ministry sought and acquired personnel, cleared all of them. Now we have put in place a system that got the point we have testing it in the corporate area, 72 machines, and the police officers like it. Because I alluded to before, they used to blame police officers for all the industry on the road. Every taxi was owned by a policeman, according to them. So my officers now have this machine, and they enjoy writing the tickets because nobody can charge them about anything. They tuck it in, and it goes to the tax office. They are finished, and they have used it quite extensively. Of the 72 tickets, machines available and working. In the first 90 days, they did 25,000 tickets or thereabouts. I think today they have about 20. They have, and the process, we collected over $18 million. So the investment in doing it better has a high rate of return. It won't continue at the rate forever. Or when they start behaving themselves, it'll go down. But I'm sure we can more than recover.
When people start get prosecuted.
When they get prosecuted. Now, I have a little hitch at that level, but we are clearing it up. And I said, it is because I can refer to the court manager. Ms. Cameron Anglin was not aware of the hitch in our courts until very recently. And I'm now confident now that she's aware and will bring it to the attention of Chief Justice Shiona with her team. Will ensure we overcome that little hitch so we can start prosecuting widely, because we know can prosecute with confidence. But what those 340 backlog did was that the judge will never show what to issue a warrant. We will need, of course, the new road traffic regulation, because the accountability, the consequence must mean something as well. But with those two things, I have given a commitment to the public this time. And it's a long commitment, but I'm sure we can get it done in the time. I don't want to, again, I'd bring some machines here some time ago. It took us a long time, but we are now ready, and I'm confident by this Christmas season, the country will see a significant benefit on the roadway. Because the tickets will be issued, but the prosecution have to begin. That when a man gets a ticket on Red Road, he don't pocket it and wait till him get the next one, and you have people coming up with 1,000 tickets and that. He'll be called to order, called to book in the court, fined and punished appropriately. To show you how it is, Madam Speaker, when they're about to begin the demonstration, when they start the demonstration, I was invited to go to Harvard Street. And the young officer on the road stopped a car arbitrary. The first time he's coming down because Minister come. When they pull it up, Mr. Minister sit here, plucked ticket. The man was outstanding 500 tickets. 500. This is what it is. In continuing, Madam Speaker, on the use of technology, which is only way we can get the force multiplier from an effective apprehension of the miscreants and the lawbreakers of society. We have upgraded the automated palm and fingerprint identification system to include the latest multi-biometric identification system. It is now used by both private and the police for investigation, and is a crucial part of our strengthening the technology of the force and improving our investigative capacity. We have upgraded the current computer-aided dispatch system, but that system is still very basic. And I'll comment further on to that, but it has been upgraded, so it is more efficient now. But it will have to be upgraded, and we're indeed poised to upgrade it to a much better system, as I'll say a little bit later. We have continued upgrading the restoration of the JCF P25 radio communication network. At one stage in our development, the police microwave system was the best communication system in the island, and it had built-in resilience. So in case of a hurricane or disaster, is the police P25 depended on. It was completely allowed to run down and not functioning in any efficient way at all. We have upgraded that, and we're going to take it even further. We continue to upgrade the data communication network of the police, which allows for secure, encrypted, end-to-end wireless and data communication services to all police facilities. The next one, Madam Speaker, I'd like to focus a little bit on, because we even had a discussion in your PAC meeting when my permanent secretary was challenged that they have been hearing about improvement in station rocket med system for years upon years, like the TTMS system. Every minister have talked about it. Every government talk about it. This government, led by this Prime Minister, will ensure that we change the entire station management system. I want to share what we're talking about. Every station have 19 of these things. 19. This is the big one they call the station diary. There's one for the prisoners, whatever they come, the lockups, the food they eat, everything. There's one for asset, and there's 15 others, so every policeman know. They learn to write in these things, and you know, that's how you keep police records, vital legal document, been going for years in the 21st century. We, Mr. Speaker, this government is going to give them equipment like this. This kind of equipment. This is the difference. I can't hold this up on it, too big. From that to this, not only 19 of these, 19 of these, to one of these. And police. I said they were challenged because we were talking. And these as well, smart check, they'll be able to access from the telephone and other equipment. That is change and transformation, Madam Speaker. We have a way to go. See, Madam Speaker, much has been done in the police force, and because we are so focused, and critically we focus on the homicide rate, but I think the country needs to understand what is being done to ensure we have the kind of force we require. This, you know, it was challenged that this wouldn't be done, and the PS gave, the Parents gave a commitment for June, well, it just started last month. However, it was installed at the beginning of May. We have another 24 stations coming on now, and by the end of the year, we'll have it across the world. We are acquiring body-worn cameras. We have initiated with the communication, the connectivity across the station, a smart check application, which means not only on their desk, but from their handheld devices, they'll be able to access data on everything that is required when they're stopping the body on the road, whether it's a traffic or an individual. The police, we are bringing the police into the 21st century. We acquired well over 1,000 vehicles for the force, but we're all drivers, and Jamaican are drivers, we know. But, you know, to have a body like the police, they require mobility. We must have a fleet management system in place. We have never had one. And the system was to allow the fleet to run down until you have none, and then you buy some, and it's going down like that. We have adopted a policy that we not only maintain their fleet levels, but we have a fleet management system in place, which means vehicles are tracked, but not only tracked for management, maintained for management, when time for maintained vehicles, etc., it's indicated. The vehicles acquired, some 959 already have the fleet management system installed, 800 motor vehicles, 141 motorcycles, and 18 service boats. Put them in a better position, drivers have been trained, and they've been operated much more effectively. I indicated, Madam Speaker, that data management is crucial for the police. And we'll be moving from a CAD, which is currently at what they call a C2, to a C5 center. We have started the process, we have a building, we have started the connectivity installation, and the equipment will come in. It's a very costly operation. It look at about $2 billion, but it will become the Center for Command, Control, Communication and Cyber Facility, which will again add significant efficiency and quality to our policing. Right? This government is committed to ensuring we have a high-quality police force. We have the men and women, we have to give them the tools, and we are providing the tools. I have to continue to mention the investment in physical facilities, because, Madam Speaker, we allow our police stations to really run down as a country. Yes. Policemen were housed in old great houses and estate properties in some rural areas. They took over principal cottages in some other areas which are run down. They took over the upstairs of parish council buildings which are allowed to run down. I mean, the one in Savannah I refer to all the time, when all the boards on the veranda, half of them rotten out, and the police cut the desk in between and a few space, and hopefully the police officer, the female police officer, don't wear high heel shoes upstairs and drop through the floor before that. Over the past year, I've spent significantly in improving the quality of the workspaces for our police officers. The job is not complete, but we have done over 121 out of the 186 facilities. The government has ensured partnership with the National Housing Trust, Jamaica Social Investment Fund, and of course the budget consolidated fund itself. So we have built 7 fit-for-purpose police stations across with JSIF and refurbish a number. NHT has built several, and we are targeting this year alone a further 15 at a cost of some $500 million. NHT will construct 5 new stations: Frome in Westmoreland, Little London in Westmoreland, La Cove in St. Elizabeth, and Chove in St. James and Stony Hill Police Station project. In addition to that, through the consolidated, this part government is our taxpayers' money, we are completing the development of a forensic pathology autopsy suite for the first time near the hospital. This will complete the build-out of the Institute of Forensic Science and Legal Medicine, and we'll have one of the finest institutes capable of serving not only our own country, but even the region. We have the best quality available. We are in the process of completing the procurement for the Westmoreland new headquarters. And I'd like to take a look at what we are putting up in Westmoreland, divisional headquarters. That's a police station, not a old building that was being used for Busher office. We are also putting up a St. Catherine divisional headquarters, which will be the new headquarters for the new area. And again, take a look at that. And Madam Speaker, I urge the members to take a look at these 2 pictures, because you see, I might be able to complete my entire presentation, but these 2 pictures of what we intend to do in Westmoreland and St. Catherine reflects the thinking of this government about the police. These are modern, professional centers, efficient, functional, user-friendly, and customer-friendly. Adequate working stations for professional men and women of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. We're building a nice professional force. We treat our policemen well. Right? That's what we're doing. We know the big elephant in the room, We talk about compensation. But I know the Minister of Finance, in his efforts, will fix that problem to the satisfaction of the policemen. I'm not going to start no public negotiation. I know it will be settled in favor of the police security forces, and they will be satisfied at the end of the day. He has the time to do it, and I allow him to go through. But I understand the policy, and it will be the interests of the officers. So we are taking the steps to do what has been promised for years and not done. We don't promise, we deliver. In fact, I don't think the Minister will mind me saying the security force have been put on their own line, because it was very difficult to recognize the efforts of security personnel, not just the police and army, and the specialized jobs they do within the global picture. So they've had to be given their own setting. That is something that has been talked about for years. And look at odd have things were done which created problems. Now we are putting a systemic, organized structure that will allow them to function and negotiate as a team, and it will take them to the right place, I am confident, in due course. Procurement is complete for the professional service for the Montego Hills Western Special Operation Facility. I said St. James has expanded in population and economy. In fact, you know, the center of entrepreneurship. Center of other things, unfortunately, but it's the center of entrepreneurship. That's where tourism and the various services have grown in recent years, BPOs, etc. So we have to put increased facilities down there. Green Acres Police Station near completion. So all these projects, Madam Speaker, along with the C5 project I wish to mention, will come to in the nigh of $16 billion. There are some people who like to create mischief by indicating bias between different arms of the security services. No. This government does not indulge in that kind of petty activity, right? You know,
petty nonsense. Look at the amount of resources. And, you know, the people who are talking of
$16 billion.
The level of investment that we have made in the security. But they have never put on the ground the level of investment that this government has made.
Right. I want to say two things on this. I have said two things on this. One, when we debate, the state of crime the country deserves the objective analysis and debate. We took government to a stage when the difference between the JDF and the JC was apparent. JDF is at single base, Harrison. We couldn't move quickly on that. Much has been done to improve not only the JCF leadership and management, so that we can introduce a structured program of investment over time to bring it up. We have also had changes in the Ministry of National Security itself, because it was not one part of government. Ministry of National Security was treated as second cousin, as your spokesman would say. The entire security apparatus, in fact, it would be fair to say that in the government that served between 2012 and 2016, the police force was defunded. Literally defunded.
Exactly.
What do I say? This government has taken an approach completely different. Yeah, not the same. No, this government is the government that's approaching our security problems with objectivity and investment. Right? Among the changes, Madam Speaker, we look at establishing a police fleet, not buy vehicles up and down of 1,500 and maintaining them, including SUVs, cars, pickups, buses, and motorcycles.
Time, Minister. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, the member's time having expired, I beg to move that it be extended sufficiently for him to wind up and conclude his presentation.
House, the question is that the Speaker be allowed, despite the standing orders be suspended to enable the Minister to continue his speech to its conclusion, notwithstanding the time limit for speeches. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. Thank you, members, Madam Speaker, members. To refresh your memories, this government bought 758 vehicles between 2016-17 and 17-18. 358 vehicles fit for purpose police vehicles 2019 to 2020. 79 vehicles 2021, 68 vehicles 21-22. And we are now in the process of working with the Ministry of Finance to introduce, as part of our fleet management, a policy to maintain the vehicle fleet standard. Rather than waiting until they run everything down, You buy a hoop of vehicles, put pressure on the bullet, you buy on a structured basis and keep refreshing the fleet and get it done. Fit for purpose vehicles. Madam Speaker, my friend across there keep making some sort of us comments. I'm going to remind them one they usually use. They used to talk about put boots on the ground. A very disrespectful statement to our police officers. In fact, my friends from downtown tell you what boots refer to. Right? We didn't see it that way. They established with the police officers in there 15,000. We needed trained police officers are professionals that require training, appropriate training, and in a structured manner. And this government is set about to do that. Despite of COVID, last year we trained 1,260 officers for the first time in the history of policing in the country. As a result, we have to net add over 800 officers to the force. See, there's an argument continuously used that, oh, because the conditions were bad. We recognize that and we are correcting them. But you'd use that 400 officers retired, attrition, etc., for bad condition. A force of 12,000, 11,000 will always have 200 people retiring in a year. No. And our police force is still our opportunity occupation. Where many young men join the force who cannot afford to go to tertiary institution and take the opportunity to trade and improve their CV. And that's a wonderful thing. I would never criticize it. Many of them stay because by the time they go through and get promotion, the comparative salary outside is there, it's still, despite of the challenge we have. Others move on. In fact, one example, take the gentleman professional who assisted us in working with the new team on the DCP of Logistics and Development to determine what to be considered the needs of the force, both manpower and technology, etc., and establish the number, which is actually more than 15,000, but illustrate how it could be done and what was necessary. And we went about training trainers and getting expanded facility. But there was a police officer. When they was searched for a high-powered human resource man outside, they was within the force. A corporal who had been to university and done his actuarial masters and focused on human resource management. And he stayed with us for 2 years. He was then moved on to a very senior institution that maybe straight to have a salary. But we had that asset in the force. The department is still built out. We don't have as many as that, but it's an illustration of the caliber of people we get and that we work with them. This force, this administration, work with the leadership and the talent in the force to build out the police force. That young man moved on, but they left us a plan on the department which was built, which he worked through, the Department for Logistics and Force Development. It's still functional and we maintain a permanent part of the force so we can continue to be on the cutting edge of development in the police force. This year we'll certainly train 1,500. We have enough trainers and we have enough facilities, and we will be able to train 1,500 and move the police force forward in terms of numbers. We have strengthened the recruitment process. So all police officers are subject and recruitment to vetting by the appropriate agency so we can remove any potential infiltrators. As I indicated, IPOB is there to ensure we maintain standards, but there is one or two would seek to get in the force. One or two slip through before, while they're being removed, we can now, in fact, prevent them from coming in. That's the purpose of a rigid recruitment process. And we have adequate number of men and women applying, and we'll continue to build out a force till we get to the appropriate number. In the process, Madam Speaker, I must indicate to the public, the police has sought to adopt standards which meet international levels, and we have sought ISO 9001 qualification, did so successfully at the Doheny Park Police Station and the Matilda's Corner Police Station. We not only did the JSAF pass the stage 1 audit in flying colours, would say, but successfully completed stage 2 audit in March of this year, and now they are currently awaiting the certification from the National Certification Body of Jamaica. Madam Speaker, allow me to make a few brief comments on the Defence Force. We already alluded to the fact that it's a critical part of what we do. The police is the law enforcement agency. But Jamaica Defence Force, the Ministry of National Security provides the administrative support services. Naturally, Jamaica Defence portfolio remains with the Prime Minister. But border control, after 2 years of Absolutely. Border control activities are crucial in the strengthening of our law enforcement capacity. We are an island between two large continents. South America is the biggest producer of hard drugs, and we are the best position to be a transshipment point. Transnational criminal activities are very busy here. We are a good location. We are a critical stop for transshipment. We are seeking to exploit that for economic reasons. All flights pass over Jamaica, so we are good for anything in terms of transshipment and transnational activity. So transnational criminals in hard drugs, human trafficking, gun trafficking, all focus on Jamaica. And we have, at the local level, significant cyber activity as well. So that area, realizing that the police force control does not expand our territorial waters, to control our economic zone and to ensure not only we can begin to develop the blue economy, but manage the transnational criminal activity. The JD, of course, had been strengthened, and during this administration, they established the MAC Brigade, the Maritime, Air and Cyber Command Brigade, which is a critical element in our management of transnational criminal activity. It is an expensive process, but a necessary one, and one that has certainly earned its made a return on its investment. This is one of the areas that sometimes veiled criticism made of. It is one of the finest parts of our agency, and they complement the work of the police and work very closely with the police at this time. The MAP Brigade at JDF is a crucial part of our crime-fighting ability. What I want to, however, indicate to the country as well, that until we bring the JCF numbers up to scratch, up to the establishment numbers, complete investment in the force multiplier activities, which are crucial in terms of efficiency and effectiveness, the JDF must play a critical role in territorial safety, public safety. And they will continue to do so and work effectively with Jamaica Police Force. We also understand that the JDF currently plays a crucial role in youth engagement. Their training in the JNSC is an outstanding pioneering program, developing not only providing a recruitment base for the JDF and other government agencies, but provides skill training and character development for many young men. And that's a program that is an outstanding program by this government and must be expanded to have the order and engage much more of our young people. Its character development is crucial. I've seen the benefit as one of their training bases based at the Burke in Western Jamaica, and I know others in the corporate area. It's a critical element in beginning to get behavior change and diversion in a real way, because we have to offer the young men from our vulnerable communities a productive alternative lifestyle. Madam Speaker, I'd just like to briefly look at a number of the other institutes that are involved. The Institute of Forensic Science and Legal Medicine, have indicated, we have completed. There were some veiled comments about government's act at the very beginning because of one or two procurement issues, but today we have completed the development of the IFSLM unit. We have now completed necessary work, our DNA technology operational and functioning optimally. We have an extremely fine ballistic unit. In fact, it is now being looked at to become the integrated ballistics the hub for integrated ballistics identification system in this region. The Institute of Forensic Science and Legal Medicine is a proud institute of the government of Jamaica, made so by the investment of this government. Madam Speaker, much has been done in law enforcement. Much more is to be done. We have a major problem. But we are committed, and this government and this present leadership has seen fit to ensure that we take the steps to have adequate staff and properly equipped police and security forces. I understand and we share the concern of the public in the homicide rate. That has been with us for some 22 years. Fixing it will not be done overnight. We have to continue to build out our police force, restore their morale, provide them the tools and the requisite legislation to ensure they can be successful in fighting the marauding murderers across our country. I will therefore seek to speak briefly to the criminal landscape, because sometimes we focus entirely on one area. The first thing I will say, and I've said before, and I will not hesitate to say it, Jamaica is the only liberal democracy, the only one in the globe that has a persistently high 40 per 100,000 homicide rate. No other country with 77 years of elected democracy has this kind of experience. It has been so since 2020, affecting all the government of the country. It's a national issue that needs to be fully interrogated, but also have to invest to correct the problem. We have to adopt strategies to remove the violence producers within the framework of our constitution, I agree, and our jurisprudence history. But this strategy of removing a killer from the community, and the strategy, of course, will have critique from civil society. We have a democratic society, I've indicated. Sometimes people refer to our neighbors in different ways. When it suits them, they speak of the liberal nature of police service in certain societies where the homicide rate has never exceeded 500,000, and speak of our own toughness of our police. Another time they speak of the success of some other country, which has no strong democratic tradition. And in fact, their response where we have succeeded are the countries that have the level of homicide we have. Many of them in Central America. They have done so primarily by either militarizing the police or by constabularizing the military, or both. We're not doing either of that. Those who like to suggest that, foolishness. We are seeking to build our police force to effectively deal with it, and they need the support when you have high violence producers heavily armed our defense force, as is required. The question of the increased homicide rate, where there might be declining major crimes, is a matter that requires some further discussion. It's again a peculiarity of the Jamaican society. But some of the changing patterns in gang wars may suggest how this has come about in the difficult communities. By sheer observation and what has emerged in recent times in terms of police response, because it's not that we have invested significantly and we have had the result. I'll demonstrate that. Gangs which are involved in extortion, drug dealing, and turf control, and petty thievery, and so forth, get involved in community killings, killing people next door on the streets. What we have seen from the results in Era 4, where this year the homicide rate is 32% below last year, 70 to be exact, is that policing based on the kind of approach we have taken, hotspot policing, empirical analysis of the data, so you know geographically where they are, and you can put your police deployment, the mobility, the quick response teams, the surveillance cameras, etc., and of course zones of special operation in extra critical areas. That works. So we have seen a 30% fallout in Era 4, which has the most endemic high levels of criminality traditionally. And that Era 4 comprises East Kingston, Central Kingston, West Kingston, and South St. Andrews. But despite all of the fracas in West Kingston, this area has shown significant decline in the area of homicide based on the operation instituted by the police. Based on the operation, because of the increased quality of equipment we have provided the police with in this area, and intelligent deployment and management of police, we have seen significant reduction in crime. On the other hand, gangs involved in what we call advanced fraud are much smaller, and transshipment of drugs tend to avoid community petty crime. They indulge in targeted killing of their competitors. This is evident in Era 1, which is where all the increase in homicide is taking place this year. But when we analyze it in detail, Madam Speaker, we find that downtown Montego Bay, which is similar to downtown Kingston, is now a relatively very safe area. It used to have from 50% of homicide in St. James, it's less than 10% now. But the numbers have spread to the rural areas where the advanced fraud activists can go wherever there's a cell phone connectivity, operate their activity, and so they are scattered across. And once they go to a district, conflict emerges and you get murders in small, quiet districts now, which requires increased numbers, increased change in tactics, and we are having extensive discussion how to move there. But certainly, Madam Speaker, I'd say, in the parish that is most severely affected, St. James, Hanover, Westmoreland, we had the state of public emergency in those parishes. Made a big difference because you're able to be more dynamic and restrict the borders of the parish. That requires extensive number of manpower to do it without that kind of legislation. We are looking at how we can address it, but that is the reality and practice on the ground. When a murder takes place in Germantown on the border of St. Elizabeth and West and St. James, on the St. James side, which is a district of maybe 5 houses, it takes the police from Montego Bay to get there 1 hour and 45 minutes. They could, if they drove to St. Elizabeth, they might get there faster. And when you look at the numbers now, you get places like Chelsea in the back of Minister Bartlett's constituency, a district where behind somewhere in Johns Hall, Springmount, Adelphi, coming back into areas like Bethel Town, Logwood in Witton, back in Devland, all deep rural areas. And I can only best describe that challenge, Madam Speaker, as one of my senior officers said to me, because the homicide rate in Area 1 is now 53% above last year. And we are not bending over and saying nothing happens. We are not only put additional resources, and the battalion, 2nd Battalion is based there. As we talk, some 60 new operational officers of the Special Ops team, OST team, is being trained to be added to that area. And as we graduate and train more people, we can reorganize and redeploy personnel, more will be added, and we get on top of the situation. But the challenge with advanced fee fraud is what a senior officer said to me. It is a white-collar job, criminal. And traditionally, white-collar investigation is different, takes more time. They are not usually associated with a high homicide rate. This is peculiar. It's a white-collar crime associated with high levels of killing. And in white-collar crime, people they have no base, they are mobile, and therefore it is a much more challenging task to intercept and overwhelm them. We are working closely. We work with our partners because the money that the people that are being extorted are from, in fact, North America. And therefore, we have to work with them to get the evidence from the people who have been extorted. And we will work locally to identify where they're operating. So it's a very complex operation. We are giving full cooperation. They have personally worked with us. We have made progress, but it's hundreds of people involved. We have apprehended dozens. Some have been extradited, but it's a continuing process, and we have to be dynamic and keep changing our strategy and tactics. It is alleged, Madam Speaker, that some $1 billion is coming to the country through this means. $1 billion and rising. That's a huge amount of money, and it provides a risk to the stability of our state, because not only buy guns that kill people, undermine and corrupt institutions, and indeed, when it gets well known, it does impact on our economy, because $1 billion is a legitimate money, is a huge amount of money. We work therefore closely with MOCA, the police department responsible, CTOC, CFCD, MOCA, and FID have to work closely to get on top of what's an emerging major crisis in this area of criminality. But it's the most challenging area. I said we have seen significant impact of the modern policing in the heavy urban areas and gangs, despite of the high rate. But this particular type is far more challenging, and we have to take new approaches, which we are doing. The other area of great concern, of course, is public disorder and extortion and street crime. In this area, of course, we need police presence. A second year after murder, said homicide. This is an area where there's concern, and I hear refer to the BPO worker leaving New Kingston who get our telephone snatched out of our hand, or payroll on a weekend, etc. That kind of activity, and shoppers on downtown who come under pressure and pickpockets. That's an area which doesn't gain the kind of attention that it really deserves, but that's a critical area. Public disorder. It also includes traffic. It's an area we will have to deploy and expand our activity, and we are doing so because we see it as a primary responsibility, and the police is taking steps to ensure that while we pursue the hardened criminals, we allow our people to move in the public space and the business district safely and otherwise, whether it is downtown Kingston and King Street shopping, Brownstown the market, or on the street of St. James, or on Redditch Road where they drive. The third critical area of the criminal landscape which may be less brutal in terms of the number of killings, but is also particularly damaging to the country, is the money laundering based on transnational criminal activity. We have to work, it's an area where the police is responsible. We have to work again with MOCA and the FID to pull down the organized criminal business activity, because when $1 billion into the Jamaican economy, that's a huge amount of money. And it can have many side effects that we don't come up front immediately, but it's danger to the economy, and we have to take steps to correct that. And we are working closely to get there. And those people who rinse the money are doing as much damage to us community and to society as much as the men who pull the trigger. The man who pulled the trigger, brutal and frightening and harsh. Those who organize to pull illegal money through the system is holding down our country, and we have to get rid of them. These are the people involved in big money laundering for scammers, for cocaine deals and others, and it must be dealt with, Mr. Speaker, rapidly. We are dedicated to our institutions to work willingly with our international partners and to apply the required resources so that we can, in fact, disrupt the organized criminal networks. We have had some success, but there's more to be done, and we are going to continue the process. Madam Speaker, I must face the reality that there is 3 years of investment. I've indicated the input we have put in expanding our law enforcement capacity to deal with the criminal epidemic involving street crimes, murders, organized crime. But to ensure their sustainability, we must have the social investment. And debate about whether we fund the police adequately or fund social security is a ridiculous debate. Because, Madam Speaker, there is no conflict between the two. There is no conflict. You cannot deal with hardcore killers without strong policing, especially trained men. A man who is scamming $100,000 a month and have guns or hire gunmen beside him traveling. You can't talk about counseling him and giving $5,000 a week. It's absolutely ridiculous. So when you come and tell the government must do more social investment, it's not in contradiction to that. Those who say that, well, I wonder where the head is. And I can't put young police officers to go counsel who don't train up with trained men who are able to deal with hardcore, brute force, marauders, killers. Yeah. That's what we're dealing with. And when necessary, when they're in gangs, we have to get the army to support them. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. That's the right thing to do. That's what we have to do. We're not converting the army to police. Army are trained to fight men with guns, and the men who criminals are out there with heavily armed weapons, better armed than the police sometimes, heavy arms.
There are people who are under the illusion that our criminals are walking around with water guns.
Yeah. Right? They have AR-15s with the 100-round magazine, submachine pistols. And when you look at the guns seized in recent years, increasing number of rifles, those men must be faced by strong, well-trained men who must protect them, provide them with the proper equipment and equipped. That's what we're dealing with, police.
Tactically equipped.
But we accept and understand they are challenged some of our young people in some communities. And this government has approached it. We want a comprehensive approach. You know, it is remarkable that it only went Capri when I said this at the beginning of my tenure. I was subject to the whiplashing of many, even from that side, about social investment. It was when Capri, almost capable research institution in the island at the University of Western, came out and pointed out that we spent $380 billion and social investment and crime continue to rise, and we get increasing number of vulnerable communities. Yeah. One of those principal projects resulted in what? 68% was spent on administrative staff. Administration. This thing has become a pork barrel for some people. And they talk about social investment. What this government is saying, we will put the money where it matters, where the poor people are. It must go in the communities. We must strengthen our social institutions to deliver the services. You have a community, and I experience it in Montego Bay. We hire people who are not in government. They get special employment. They get special salary. The director for the St. James operation is getting twice what the permanent secretary gets. And then when the project finishes, it goes over. And they take all the data from SDC. Wow. but there's very little money to reach the poor guy, the poor family in Canterbury or Norwood. That we change and will maintain that it must be changed. But when we spend money, it must reach the right people, the vulnerable, the poor. And that means bringing better services to those people, education, public health, the social security benefits. You know, Madam Speaker, only last year, this is the challenge I had. One of these agencies went into West Kingston. They also in my constituency. But they got distressed because, by some means, the local professionals were able to identify some 60 needy people, lactating mothers and some other indigents who were in need of some special grants, lactating and pregnant mothers. The problem is the checks we're getting is still dated because after 5 months, the people involved were afraid to go in there. They didn't know where to go. They couldn't find them. I said, let me know. In 24 hours, I identified all 60 and delivered. Yeah. Because the people who were involved in SDC and the Ministry of Social Security knew these people, were comfortable in going there and could call on the CSSB and the police to assist them if they thought they needed a police protection. And the matter was settled. To strengthen our local services is the most important element in improving their lives and bringing transformation to the poor people in these districts. And that this government will not resile from. So the Prime Minister has done a number of things and shown a lot of which comes out of his ministry. In the case of the police, we are not only working with those agents collaboratively, and the Crime Prevention Unit and Ministry works with the various agencies to create a holistic approach, which I'll come to a little later on. But in our own police stations, we have created domestic violence intervention centers, 10 complete already, and other facilities to deal with domestic violence and interface people in a private and personal way. This is why in the police station we are building a special design. They are designed as police station to have reception areas, not guard rooms, private interview rooms, where people can be interviewed in confidence. That is how this government operates. We have the Prime Minister have announced, and the Ministry is working in selected areas. And when you go into selected areas, it's not a matter of new project. It's a project, but we don't get new people involved. We use the same people out there who know the place to ensure the proof of concept, you might say. But in the long run, the Prime Minister have indicated a review of our education system, the PATS report referred to by some, and the object is to ensure that our people in vulnerable communities will have quality infant, primary, secondary schooling adequately and quality. The worst schools cannot run a project, and when you go in there, you spend millions of dollars, and you leave the school the same as before. That is almost criminal negligence. We have schools which are turning out failures, and you go in there and you take pictures, hand out all kinds of things, and leave the school as it is. Those must be fixed. I've had a personal experience. I'm referred to Glendevon in my own constituency, which is an all-age school we converted to our infant and primary school. And by working with the principal to change the institution, not hand out, we call them back to school and all kind of little petty happy things from time to time. Those systemic changes in the school, which I won't go into in this occasion, but in 3 years, including providing with a computer lab that they use, not handing them one. We moved grade 4 literacy and numeracy from 40% to 100%. Wow. Right? Landfills is one of the toughest communities, we agree. They might even take pride of it and say, we have the toughest of the gangs. I won't name them, no. But we are now showing they have bright kids, and that's how we transform it. That these youngsters who are now getting placed in quality education institutions, not into CAP, but into Cornwall and Herbert Morrison, will come out as young, bright professionals to serve this country and to improve their own lives and their family lives. While that program awaits and is expansion developed by the ministry to bring the effective service across the board, we have the zones of special operation, which demonstrate that holistic government approach to the problem we can do. So we are working to transform the community and the service of the community. We are doing other projects along the sort. We have identified some 25 schools across in these areas, including the zones of special operation, but also outside of that, in places like Kingston and North Kingston and St. Andrew, Denham Town, Mountain View, Whitfield Town, Olympic Gardens, Spot Valley in St. James, Flanker, Farm Heights, Salt Spring, and Green Hill in Westmoreland, to ensure that we begin to we can demonstrate that clearly bringing high-quality social services to these challenge areas will transform them and bring about effective change, and in the long run, reduce the recruitment of young men to gangsters. That's this long-term, medium-term, short, medium-term, long-term thing. It does not in any way negate the need for strong policing up front, to create the space for the social providers to do their work. And in this, I say, we welcome NGOs, but they must work in conjunction with the government, not in parallel, like some new government being set up. That work. And has never worked. That's why the 380 billion didn't achieve much. And today I commend the private sector organization led by Mr. Keith Duncan to have initiated the STAR project, and has worked very closely with the Crime Prevention Unit and the Ministry of Education to begin to intervene in a number of communities to demonstrate how holistic approach will do it. Because we want all hands on board. And I commend that particular project, which is adopting that policy, where we don't bring on a whole heap of people at high salaries, paid more than the teachers, the civil servants, the police officers, the STC officers, and they stay for 3 years and then disappear and send a good report about what wonderful things they did. But, you know, in Jamaica, it can't change. Rubbish. Our country, our people, are some of the finest people in the globe. We sometimes don't take enough credit for it. A foreigner once said to me, quite a bit almost perturbed, he said, you know, Dr. Chang, it's the first country I go to and I don't know hyphenated citizen. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, everybody I talk to, I am a Jamaican. You know, hear about Chinese Jamaican, Indian Jamaican, Afro Jamaican. He said, I am Jamaican. Some man was coming from Jamaica. We are a strong, proud people. We are capable people. We will solve our problem and we will restore prosperity and good service order to our country. Money now being used by our partners come through the budget. So the most recent move from the EU is going to the budget, and we monitor it. The City Secure Business Council is set up, consisting of all permanent secretaries and head of agency to coordinate the work of the agencies to serve these communities. So when we say we're going to train 97,000 young people, the data is wrong, not 20,000, 97,000 too hard. Hearts have to demonstrate the success of doing that before they get the money from the Ministry of Finance. Yeah. We indicate we want 376,000 parents engaged. Only in March of this year, we had to go on a rapid, intense program where we do Live Good social services program to engage more parents to get to the 70,000 we agreed to do and engage in this year and continue until we get to 375. We not only have a different philosophy, we implement our programs, and we're going to reach our people and transform those communities. Domestic violence, as I said, is a challenge, and we're taking steps. It is 10 new centers. And in addition to that, we have had domestic violence pop-up clinics across the island to sensitize the public and the police, and sensitize the police and domestic violence issues. That's an issue. Domestic violence, gender violence, and it needs sensitization by our professionals. And we're doing that. And it just recognized we have gone a long way in doing that. 544 civilians were trained as first responders in domestic violence across the island. And we are expanding more. In addition to the 100 police officers who are specially trained to manage the domestic violence intervention centers. In addition to that, we are working with the Ministry of Education to deal with school violence. We have 154 schools on the list already, and we have trained, we have 174 school resource officers and 47 school liaison officers. Since January, we have trained an additional 69 school resource officers. We see violence as a major epidemic across the country, and we are going to take steps to correct it. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, correct. You know, a senior police officer said to me a while ago, recently, would the country accept the police getting a law like the DRMA, Disaster Risk Management Act, because they are willing to be contact tracers. They want the power to quarantine them.
Yes.
That's what they're asking for.
Yes.
That's different. They will do the contact tracing. They know them. They will quarantine them, and if necessary, quarantine the community until we get down to violence.
Of course.
That's what they did, Hamry.
Yes.
I was quite fascinated as a public health person background when the senior officer said that to me.
That's
what it is. Disease. He said, give us, Dr. Chang, convince the colleagues to give me that. I will find him. They're good contact tracer. I'm not going to hurt them. I just will quarantine them till I can get them under control.
So the ESMA is a new
right?
security measures act.
So we have significant violence rehabilitation program, including the JCF, which works with the JDF, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Justice, and the STC and all others. Madam Speaker, let me try and pull you coming down. We have significant rehabilitation offenders. We do have challenges in our prison system, but we have done much work in dealing especially with the juvenile members of the Correctional Institute. My colleague who oversees that directly is a We Transform Youth Empowerment Program, which is going extremely well. And some of the basic training we talk about, training youngsters who are, senior teenagers in skills. Barbering, nail care attendant, hair braiding and weaving, hairstylist, fundamentals of makeup artistry, housekeeping level 2, breakfast cook, baker, public care attendant. All those are part of what we do for students. Allow them to have a skill that is marketable. But we also spot our bright kids and males and adults. There are some 141 who are involved in academic activities. Another 151 in vocational activity. 271 inmates are enrolled in secondary academic activities, and another 484 in vocational work. 123 inmates were registered for 2021 SEC examination. 45% of all the candidates who sat the exam passed at least one subject. 50% of the registered juvenile candidates were successful in at least one subject. And we have an MOU with a particular college to look at those who may wish to go to tertiary level. Community engagement, Madam Speaker, is a positive part of, is a critical part of what we do to reduce the level of violence, and ultimately violence is manifested as homicide. So we start with those young. We have 110 police active youth clubs, and we're expanding that. We have 730 neighborhood watch groups, which we're expanding as well. We have 2 beach watch groups to deal with fishermen. And in 2021, we had 87 police officers and external stakeholders sensitized to JCA proactive violence interruption strategy to combat incidents with the potential for reprisal. Start the process of seeing we can reduce that, because much of our homicides and murder come from reprisals, which is a very difficult one. Besides reprisal, of course, we have the use of contract killers, which is particularly difficult and has resulted in, among the high rate of homicide this year, if you look at the incident, we see that there's less shooting incident, but far more homicides. There's 470 incidents of shooting, which is nearly 20% less than last year, but this amount of homicide is 7% above last year. Contract killers is a large scale, a relatively new phenomenon, but it's a very damaging and dangerous part of what is happening in the criminal landscape. But when they go to kill, they kill. Yeah. And they will look at a community, they have one per target, and they shoot everybody at present. And it is extremely traumatic. The police have intercepted several of those networks because they operate in cells. As recently and last week on the highway, it was known, and I noticed that the response of Indicom was to advertise for witnesses. That was one of the most notorious contract killing networks. Up front, we could account for some 12 murders immediately. And it can begin to look at others where they were involved. And police intelligence was able to intercept that, and we have to expand and improve our intelligence services. The Community Safety and Security Officers highlighted where over 100 volunteer passers are trained in proactive violence interruption. Let me conclude, Madam Speaker, on a short note on looking at the legislative program. One thing I've learned in this ministry, if we do have quality law, quality legal framework, and I'm the Prime Minister of Legal Service and Constitutional Reform was behind me somewhere, kind of test that. And in that year, we have done some work. We need to do more. But I just say on a general basis, this country have to expand the capacity of that section of government. Because it's not just a matter of we take a beating on the legislators, but it's a process. And the truth is we don't have the capacity in the CPC and the AG to handle of volume of work. In fact, if we take 4 major pieces of legislation, you block up the whole system. The Firearms Act, in order to carry it through to where it is today, and eventually, we're about to lock out a lot of people out of the Joint Select Committee in the House. Even the Minister of Finance had to delay one of his hearings, and the Minister of Health, in order to bring it to the level we want. We need the capacity. So I just identify, as I said, I'm giving a 4-year report, so I've taken a bit more time than I should, but I think it was important, given the gravity of the situation and what we're doing. Among the legislation we have brought to the House in 2018 through 2020, Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency, Code of Conduct, the measures, the regulations, and we had the appointed day of notice for the actual major legislation and the investigation, prosecution procedures. So MOCA is now a fully autonomous body, an extant body. Started a little bit wavy in terms of what it should be, but it has consolidated itself behind corruption and cyber, and is doing an excellent job, and is a very important agency, and in fact is the most active agency behind the advance fee credit activity. And they are a small team, but highly effective and very good. They have charged, every week they have what they call, they book the cases for CTAC to pick up, 10, 12 per week. The Criminal Justice Suppression of Criminal Organized Amendment Act. We know we inherited this legislation, we had to do amendments, and we have so done, and that's gone through successfully in 2021, worked close with the Joint Select with the members of the opposition, express my appreciation again, but we have taken that through the House in this administration. Trafficking Persons, Prevention, Suppression, Punishment Amendment Act. Small but crucial piece of legislation. We remove for those who are committed all fines. And if you are caught guilty of any human trafficking as an individual, you'll be locked up. And that should be done for a number of other things. But that was done, and we are taking steps, getting more shelters in place, and we have also done work to sensitize the force. And I must say that as part of the program, the President Permanent Secretary is now in charge of the task force to guide and manage the entire process of response to trafficking in persons, which is a heinous crime which should never even be discussed in a country like ours, but it is there, it's a problem, and we are taking steps to ensure we can prevent it from expanding. The Process of Crime Amendment Act 2019 and the Process of Crime Money Laundering Prevention Amendment Regulation 2019. Some work has been done on amendment, more needs to be done, but we know there are some elements of, that is going to fulfill the entire requirements of the Financial Action Task Force. We amended the Correctional Act to operationalize an area that will criminalize the presence of prohibited weapons in the center, but there's much more to be done to deal with a set of criminals who are operating from inside the correctional centers. And we are taking steps which we'll indicate early to restrict that, because some of the most notorious organizers of homicide are emerging from inside the prisons. On stream to be delivered quick to the House, the Firearms Prohibition, Restriction and Regulation Act, which requires the repeal and replace of the old bill. This will be debated soon, so I'll say no more on that. But it is at a stage now where the technical people, parliamentary House staff and CPC is getting the final act together, and we should be in the House during the course of this month. We have done the review of the zones of special operations, special security community development measures, and that should be, revision is complete. We will be amending the Passport Act to make it relevant today, more relevant. We are amending significant change to the Immigration Restriction Council Citizens Act and the Aliens Act 1946, and the attending regulation will be changed to bring about more effective, not only better service to our citizens, but more effective border control. Amending the Process of Crime Act, which is crucial for Financial Action Task Force, but we have some legal hurdles we need to deal with there. We have amended the Fingerprint Act, and we're developing regulations for the Dangerous Drug Amendment Act, which deals with the disposal of drugs seized during criminal prosecution. These seek to provide specific guidance for such activity. During the course of this year, we'll bring about significant status review of the Correctional Act, bill to be properly developed, National Intelligence and Security Bill, as we finish what we're doing. Because one of my policy, and in the ministry, I will not start new things until we complete what we have done. There's a system in government that you start and you stop and you start and stop. The ministry is committed to completing its tasks, as we are doing with the TTMS, as we are doing with our digitization of the police force, and so we're doing with legislation. I'm getting support of the relevant ministers, so we're going to ensure they are done, and therefore there's another bill for the security person, not police, in place. So we have to strengthen our legal and policy units to ensure that we can execute our legislative agenda more effectively and in a timely manner. Crucial for good quality law enforcement. Madam Speaker, effective change and transformation is a process, not an event. The need to build a strong, effective police force that years of neglect will take time. It will be costly and requires a national commitment. This government is committed to the process and will complete the job. May I said some thought I wouldn't be there to finish the TTMS system. I am still here, and so is the Prime Minister. We'll get the job done. Police force is a national one, has responsibility for all aspects of crime. They must deal effectively with brutal gangs populated with killers. They must ensure public order and public safety in public spaces, school violence, and they must dismantle organized criminal network. It's a broad spectrum of criminal activity requiring different skills, but we have the skill set in our police force, from soldiering, as you might say, to high-quality technology and legal skill set to deal with all of these activities. I'm confident the men and women of the JSCF, supported by the Jamaica Defence Force, MOCA, FID, and other supporting agencies, have the will, the training, and the requisite skill to get the job done. As a government, we are providing the tools required to ensure victory over the epidemic of criminality that is pervading our society. My colleagues feel it is not an option. May God continue to bless Jamaica. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security. Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of National Security, for a very comprehensive presentation. We will now invite the member from St. Catherine Eastern. At the very end, House Leader. So we will now invite the Member of Parliament for St. Catherine Eastern to make her presentation, Member Daley.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand in this honourable House in my third term as the Member of Parliament for St. Catherine Eastern, and the second term as the opposition spokesperson on local government and community development. I'm grateful to the Almighty God for His grace and favor. I thank God for His continued blessings on us in what has been a challenging period. Madam Speaker, Psalms 127 verse 1 tells us that, except the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waited, but in vain. Madam Speaker, in these times of uncertainty and hardships, we must put God first in everything we do. Over the last 2 years, COVID-19 pandemic has created havoc on the world. Jamaica did not escape and is not done with yet. My sincere thanks to all the frontline workers who continue to save lives and keep our people healthy. We owe them, Madam Speaker, a debt of gratitude. Madam Speaker, even with the new cases, we are praying that the worst has passed. I called upon all of us to continue to practice appropriate COVID protocols let me remind members of this honorable House that we must lead by example. It cannot be one rule for thee, but not for me. If we ignore the rules, we cannot expect compliance from the people that we serve. We have a duty to reduce the effects of COVID-19 on our people so that we can all return to the normal as we used to have. Madam Speaker, I would love you to just give me the opportunity to acknowledge a few persons. No member in this House has done it all on their own. I am here because of my village. Many have supported me in good and bad times. The people of St. Catherine Easterns are my motivation. They give me the strength and energy to fight. I thank them for their loyalty, love, and support. I am determined to give my all to improving their lives. I want to recognize and thank the opposition leader, Mark Golding, for giving me the opportunity to shadow this important portfolio. Madam Speaker, anyone who knows me knows that local government is near and dear to my heart. I believe in its potential to change communities and, by extension, Jamaica for the better. I thank you, Madam Speaker, for the stellar role you have played in ensuring an orderly management for the proceedings of this House. To the staff of the Parliament who go beyond the call of duty with graciousness and professionalism, I thank you. To members of this House, I thank you for your support. I must also thank my very supportive councillors, my family, security detail, and staff for being my anchor and my strength. Madam Speaker, my contribution to this sectorial debate would not come at a more opportune time. It is clear from the reports and complaints that certain problems relating to local government and rural development needs to be addressed urgently. Madam Speaker, I now turn to a matter to start my presentation that I am not too comfortable with starting, but nonetheless, I have to start because it is on everybody's lips in and around this country. It has to do with solid waste management. Madam Speaker, we cannot speak about development when our people are breathing in the stench and toxins of rotten garbage. It is an insult to all of us when the suffering people are blamed for the poor management of solid waste collection. How can you blame the people, Madam Speaker, when the trucks don't show up? Madam Speaker, it breaks my heart to read stories of residents having to stock up on salt to control the population of maggot because garbage has not been collected for over a long period. Solid waste, especially regular and timely collection of garbage, is a concern across the length and breadth of this country. All they can see is garbage, uncollected garbage, defiling our landscape. There is no proper schedule, no proper timeline for it to be collected. The garbage is allowed to remain and become a welcoming refuge of rats, fly, roach, and other insects and vermin. Uncollected and rotten garbage are serious health hazard. The people, Madam Speaker, deserve better. I am recommending, Madam Speaker, that we build out some holding station in each parish to store garbage for not more than even 5 days, and then let the smaller trucks do the pickup in and around the communities. I think, Madam Speaker, it would help to clean the towns and the communities in a more swifter and timely manner. Speaking about trucks, Madam Speaker, last year during the budget debate, we were told that we were going to get 100 trucks. However, in this year's Finance Committee meeting, it was said, Madam Speaker, due to COVID, poor COVID, only 50 could be purchased. Can the minister tell me, and I'm going to ask to be, I want to be giving my presentation in silence, Minister Finance. Can the minister tell the country when the 50 will be added to the existing fleet? Is there a timeline for the other 50 to be acquired? Madam Speaker, there's a serious problem with trucks to collect the garbage. Even the trucks that were purchased previously are having a big problem. In fact, you know what they call them, Madam Speaker? Big head scout, because they're big cabin and a very small body to pick up the garbage. Big head scout. I have been told also that some of them are not being in use because they are unsuitable for the large loads. I think, Madam Speaker, the minister needs to tell the Parliament if this is so. I've been reliably informed too that some municipalities are so frustrated with the state of garbage collection that they are planning to purchase their own trucks. I don't know if the Minister of Finance hear anything about that. If that is so, Madam Speaker, we might as well give back the services to the local authorities where it is rightfully belong. And with the matter of dumps, Madam Speaker, there are approximately 8 dump sites across Jamaica. However, the main dump sites are the Riverton City Landfill and the retirement dump in Montego Bay. These 2 sites have cost the government billions in lawsuits because of problems caused by the frequent fires. Sometimes I wonder even about those fires. There is no equipment readily available, none, Madam Speaker, on site, not even material such as dirt and sand.
Madam Speaker, on a point. Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of order. Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of order.
Member Daley.
Madam Speaker,
hold a minute, Minister. Minister, hold a moment.
Madam Speaker, I rise on a point of order.
Hold on,
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I cannot sit here and allow the member to mislead the House about the response, about equipment and about coverage. Madam Speaker, it is absolutely not true. She is misleading the House, and I'd like her to correct it or to bring the facts to substantiate the argument, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I would prefer him bring the facts and then I will correct it. These issues, Madam Speaker, must be immediately addressed to reduce the number of out-of-control fires which causes health hazard and other problems for communities. I want to know too, Madam Speaker, if it is true that when it rains heavily, Madam Speaker, there is no roadway to go to these dumps. As a matter of fact, some of the trucks are stuck, and his tractor have to be pulling them out of the mud. So we understand the state of National Solid Waste Management Authority. Madam Speaker, the people are fed up out there. We think it's a joke. It is not a joke. This is unacceptable. Madam Speaker, year after year we are told that the landfill and dump site will be transformed to generate income. Year after year we watch, wait, and see condition worsening and our people suffering. Madam Speaker, why can't we adopt a similar approach like Singapore? They have a vibrant waste-to-energy program in which up to 90% of their waste is converted to energy. They also instill in the population that waste management, Madam Speaker, and it goes back to public education, begins at home. Madam Speaker, we are taking too long to get this thing right. I urge the government to act on getting the waste-to-energy plant up and running and the garbage collections to be up in a suitable standard, because the people are paying their tax dollar and deserve better. Madam Speaker, I am feeling like a stock record. Every year, every time I hear about 18 years, that almost wipe out my own and nothing is happening. I am feeling like a stock record as every year I speak on the problems facing the National Solid Waste Management Authority, but nothing has been done. This matter is now a crisis with serious health implications. Madam Speaker, can I ask through you to the Minister, what is the budget to carry out duties in an effective way with the National Solid Waste Management Authority? I also want to know, I think I saw it in the book, but I did not come to it, if he is good enough to tell me how much money has been collected from taxpayers for solid waste management, because it was supposed to be exclusive to solid waste. Madam Speaker, I'm a little confused. The original mandate of National Solid Waste, and I was there at the time, authority was to effectively manage solid waste, promote public awareness of the importance of the efficient solid waste management, and to advise the Minister on matters of general policy relating to solid waste in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, this has changed. It is certainly not fulfilling that mandate now. It has taken on a different role, hiring and firing, and doing the day-to-day operation. That is the reason why we have this kind of condition in the country. Madam Speaker, solid waste need urgent overhaul now. Madam Speaker, there's another big problem, and it has to do with the monitors. We take all kinds of people and say they are monitors. Some of them do not even visit the site that they're monitoring. They are being paid to observe some from home. Can you monitor sites from home? Madam Speaker, what is worse? Some of these monitors are not adequately trained because we're taking solid waste for a joke. I recommend, Madam Speaker, that persons employed, especially in to be monitors, get at least 3 to 6 months of training before they are certified and approved by an accredited institution that understands the management of solid waste. This is not a joke. We need qualified people to be monitors who know about solid waste management. In every country, people get training, they go to school, go do it, they do everything. And we here just take up people and just put them in there, and this is the end result. nothing is happening. On a different note, Madam Speaker, I want to commend the government for the 34 wardens who are now certified. However, we need way more than that to manage effectively. We also need more street sweepers. Some streets, Madam Speaker, that was supposed to be side street have now become almost Main Street, Madam Speaker, and I believe it needs to be swept on a daily basis. I also believe, Madam Speaker, that the municipalities would do a better job in monitoring and supervising these sweepers. I now turn to gully training. Madam Speaker, the hurricane season is now on us. Even before the season officially started, Hurricane Agatha roared towards the southern coast of Mexico. The experts are predicting that this year we will see another above-average season with at least 19 named storms and 9 hurricanes. They say 4 of these hurricanes will be Category 3 or probably higher. Madam Speaker, in 2012, Hurricane Sandy causes nearly $3 billion in damage to Jamaica. Just last year, we felt the impact on Hurricane Elsa. Hundreds of millions of dollars in damage was done to our roadways. Major corridors were flooded, which causes damage to vehicles and properties. Much of this could be preventable if we were properly maintaining our drains. We can't, Madam Speaker, control Mother Nature, but we can get better prepared to handle what throws at us. We must have proper infrastructure that will withstand the ravages of hurricanes and other disasters. That is why, Madam Speaker, urgent attention must be placed on gully and drains and drain cleaning. Again, I speak of the $320 million budget that was presented in this Parliament by the Honourable Minister of Finance. He said the cleaning program would be ongoing. I don't know if it even starts, much less to be ongoing. Last year, the poor state of gullies, including the Sandy Gully, was highlighted by the Jamaica Observer. Sadly, nothing has changed, Madam Speaker, nothing. Recently, I looked at Sandy Gully. It remained in deplorable condition, with mounds of garbage and debris at several points. This is our main gully, transporting stormwater away from many communities. This is a recipe for disaster if a hurricane or rain-producing storm passes through Jamaica. Madam Speaker, there is no time to waste. We must act in the interest of our people. I now turn to local government reform. Valerie Jarrett, who was a senior advisor to President Barack Obama, stated, "When you are in local government, you are on the ground and you are looking into the eyes and hearts of the people you are there to serve. It teaches you to listen. It teaches you to be expansive in the people whom you talk to. And I think that engagement gives you political judgment." Madam Speaker, an effective local government meets the people where they are and attends to their needs. Local government and rural development are critical pillars to advance the growth and development of our country. While we have seen significant achievements, I would not bash that, including the entrenchment of local government in the Constitution, more work must be done. As it is, there are no mechanisms to ensure effective service delivery and full citizen participation in governance. Time comes for us to have an honest examination of the service delivery functions and the division of responsibility between central and local government. Madam Speaker, 3 main acts were passed in 2016 to govern local government. These include the Local Government Act, the Local Government Financing and Financial Management Act, and the Local Government Unified Service and Employment Act. These acts, Madam Speaker, were put in place to redefine the governance and management of local government, which is desperately needed. During the tenure of the Most Honorable P.J. Patterson, Ministry Paper number 893 had some objectives. These include shifting the focus of local authorities to one of providing leadership and coordinating framework, and examining the distribution of services responsibilities between central and local government. Madam Speaker, I had raised the issues of effective service delivery and full citizen participation in governance in my 2021 presentation, in which I mentioned that the people deserve effective representation, value for every dollar spent, effective and efficient service delivery, and a supportive and an empowering environment for community development and economic growth. Madam Speaker, we are here in a digital age, and to give us effective and efficient delivery of services, our municipalities must be upgraded. Our citizens must have increased access, especially when they are seeking assistance, making complaints, or doing their duties at the municipalities. The telephone and the email service are dismal. Citizens complain often that no answers through the telephone, and there's no timely response to email, or no response at all. Madam Speaker, we need effective now online services, which we're going in a digital age. Effective online services to include a municipality app, centralized WhatsApp chat, citizen engagement platforms, and other online services that will make the municipalities more efficient to carry out their duties. As I ask the government to adapt to the times, I also emphasize the importance of monitoring. We have a tendency in this country to put out some very beautiful and fabulous things, and when it is done, no monitoring and supervision, so it goes right back to square one. Madam Speaker, if the services are in place but are not monitored, then things will not improve, and our citizens will continue to be shortchanged. Local government reform must improve the connection among local authorities, citizens, and their communities. We need to develop strong relationships among government, private sector, public sector, citizens, and communities. And as Speaker, I now turn to community development. I must say that there is some improvement, especially the Paint the City initiative is a step in the right direction. The Minister of Finance in his 2021 sectoral debate said the project provides approximately 2,000 jobs. That is good. However, a paint job does not remove the stigma attached to depressed communities. More has to be done. It is true, Madam Speaker, that a nicer environment will yield a better and more productive human being. However, painting alone is not creating the communities that will nurture good and productive citizens. Painting alone is like somebody tell me that it's putting lipstick on a pig. But I'm not going to use that here. No, we're not going there. Madam Speaker, we need to establish facilities for training and to create green spaces and recreational areas for the citizens, especially our children. God bless the few communities with these amenities. Madam Speaker, when citizens are stressed, instead of taking up illicit activities where the Minister of Security just spoke about, the green spaces or the recreational areas can be the chill spot The National Library, Madam Speaker, of Medicine conducted a study focusing on the importance of green spaces and mental health. The findings published on their website point out that 1, environment shapes humans' behavior. Simple exposure to the natural environment is psychologically restorative and has beneficial influences on an individual's emotions and ability to reflect on life problems. And green spaces, you love to talk about green. Green spaces provide vital health as well as environmental services. So, Madam Speaker, we need these facilities in every community across Jamaica. I believe that local government must also consider road infrastructure, water, and light as part of the development of communities. The citizens do not want to know who is responsible for local government, water commission, or NAA. Madam Speaker, what the people of this country, the taxpayers, want to see, that their elected representatives are solving their problems and doing what they elect to do and doing what they are elected to do. Additionally, Madam Speaker, if we raise the standard of living and quality of life in Jamaica, there will be decrease in violence. We saw this in 2014 when the most Honorable Portia Simpson Miller led this country. The murder rate fell to its lowest level since 2000. Jobs were provided through the G program, and Madam Speaker, with many youths employed, they had no time to engage in criminal activity. So you see, Madam Speaker, when you build good communities, you get less crime. I'm now going to turn, Madam Speaker, to fire services.
Member Daley, don't bother to turn yet. Hold a moment, please. House Leader.
You're going well.
Her time has expired.
Madam Speaker, in spite of the standing orders, I ask if the member could be allowed to complete her presentation in as short a time as possible.
The question is that the standing orders be suspended to enable the member to continue her speech to its conclusion, notwithstanding the time limit on speeches. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Member Daley.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I now turn to the fire services. The Jamaica Fire Brigade has been making headlines in recent weeks, but for the wrong reason. The recent protests by a small group of firefighters over poor staff welfare did not go through the proper channels, but it sent a powerful message about the frustration among firefighters. Madam Speaker, I am therefore asking for some forgiveness for the frustrated officers who mistakenly did not go through the correct channels and were suspended. Cut their suspension short so that they can do what they do best, save lives, property, and livelihood. Madam Speaker, when our firemen and women do not feel appreciated for the vital and valuable work they are doing, then the level and quality of service will fall. Many firefighters across the system are calling for a better work environment and restoring the 24-hour shift roster. They feel the 24-hour shift could cushion the challenges that will come with government's proposed salary scale. Madam Speaker, the welfare of our firefighters must be a priority. Finding ways to improve the conditions under which they work must be an urgent concern to all of us here. We cannot have civil servants not being compensated properly for their valuable work in this country. And I remember when the Prime Minister was opposition, he talked vigorously that they should be compensated. Madam Speaker, I give credit where credit is due. I commend the government and the Honourable Minister for the newly completed $580 million state-of-the-art fire station in Montego Bay. However, Madam Speaker, to fully serve the needs of communities across Jamaica, more fire stations are necessary. Madam Speaker, I now turn to markets. Madam Speaker, I appealed last year to the government to fix up the market that so many Jamaicans rely on to make a living for food. I lobbied for a modernization program, but with the situation so bad now, I am going to move from modernization, and I'm willing to settle for better hygiene and health practices. Yeah. Madam Speaker, the markets need to be washed on a regular schedule, and garbage must be removed in a timely manner. And if we all sit here and pretend, we would be doing a disservice to our people. This is not happening now, and our markets are dirty, and they have stench. Rotten produce is unbearable in some of the markets. Some of the markets are so infested with rodents that it is unbearable. The conditions in our market are not only unpleasant, but they are unhealthy. Madam Speaker, if you just take a trip to some of these markets, you will understand the deplorable condition in which people have to operate and customers have to shop. Madam Speaker, vendors are providing a valuable service by feeding our nation. Many are suffering because the conditions in the market are turning some citizens away. Other vendors are forced to take to the street to sell their produce. Madam Speaker, as if the working conditions were not bad enough, vendors have no long-term welfare and social security. Vendors are small businesses, business owners, and if we are promoting, which we come in this parliament and promote, small businesses, then the government should help to organize an insurance scheme for these vendors. Frequent fires, especially in the arcades, have left some vendors in financial ruins. They lose everything, but with no insurance, they are unable to replace their merchandise or even to get a little startup. It is heart-wrenching to know that vendors have to pay even increasing fees, market fees, but whenever there is fire, flood, or any natural disaster, there is not a dollar that can be given. I believe it is time for the government to look at these vendors to make sure that they are properly insured. Madam Speaker, better can be done if we are to promote local government. And in conclusion, Madam Speaker, there are many other important areas within my portfolio, including rural water and the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, that time will not allow me to address today. In my presentation today, I touched on garbage collection, markets, fire services, and local government reform, as these must be addressed with a matter of urgency. Madam Speaker, the true measures of successful government policies is to see our people thriving healthy, safe, and happy. By those measurements, Jamaica has failed. I am convinced that one way to turn this around is to create strong and effective local authorities that meet our people where they are and solve the issues they face in a timely manner. Stronger local authorities can help solve the issues of poverty, inequality, and underdevelopment. In this, our 60th year of independence, let us empower local authorities and give them adequate resources to improve communities and lift people out of the bondage of poverty, crime, and hopelessness. In this, our 60th year, everyone, from the man selling on the street, the garbage collector, the doctor, the teacher, the firefighter, and the police officers, deserve a stake in the bounty of Jamaica. In this, our 60th year, every child, whether from De La Vega City to Norbrook to Flanker, must have the opportunity for education and success. In this, Madam Speaker, our 60th year, Everyone who is willing to work hard should be able to own a home, raise a family, educate their children, and put away something for their retirement. I want to see hope. I want to see hope, Madam Speaker. Optimism and confidence replace the fear and hopelessness that have blanketed our island. If we work together, give everyone an equal opportunity to build a successful life, Jamaica will have a future that is bright and prosperous. Yes, we love to use prosperous. That's why I'm using it, because you love it. May God bless our beautiful country. May He bless and order our steps as we celebrate our 60th year of independence. May God bless this land we love.
Thank you, Member Daley. I now invite the member from St. Andrews Southwestern to make her presentation. Member Angela Brown Burke.
Madam Speaker, as I speak today, I hold front and center the dream of Jamaicans of all ages, income groups, religious beliefs, and political persuasion. Fulfillment of that dream, especially as we mark 60 years of independence, requires our collective commitment to excellence in education. To that end, we on this side of the House are determined to see Jamaica as a country where every child is empowered with literacy and numeracy skills, every youth with skills for the careers of their choice, and every citizen confident of his or her abilities and proud of their Jamaicanness. So I start today by giving thanks to the Creator, whose mercy and grace have kept me. Madam Speaker, I am here today because the residents of Southwest St. Andrew, initially based on a recommendation by Sister P., the Most Honorable Portia Simpson-Miller, welcomed me into their homes and into their hearts. Their continued guidance and support have enabled me to serve them faithfully and courageously. To my 3 councillors and my councillor candidate, the constituency committee, community leaders, staff at the office, and the team that keeps me on the road, my CPO and my driver, a few of whom are here with us today, a world of gratitude is what I extend. Madam Speaker, my admiration and respect for the Leader of Opposition, Mr. Mark Golding, continue to grow as I work with him in defense of the rights of the Jamaican people. Leader, thanks for entrusting me with the education and training portfolio. You know that education is dear to my heart. It's the only reason why I could stand here today as a young girl from West Kingston and Likayalas out the road there. To my colleagues from both sides of the House, thanks for your guidance and your collegiality. To the staff of the Houses of Parliament, thank you for your continued technical advice and support. To members of the Education Task Force, I am always inspired by your passion, patriotism, and dedicated service to this modification of our children and all Jamaicans. To our teachers, principals, students, I appreciate all the calls, messages, questions, suggestions, and advice that you freely give, all in the name of improving the education sector. Madam Speaker, please allow me to, at this time, extend heartfelt sympathies on behalf of the entire opposition, to the immediate families, friends, and the teaching community for those who have passed over the last few weeks. I think of Gregory Williams, lecturer of Portmore Community College, Anne-Marie Johnson Linder, vice principal of Duncan's Old Age, Antoinette Banton Ellis, principal of Vere, Carlos Gordon, teacher of One Way Prep, Donnelly Wright of Tarrant High, Jennifer Giddon, acting principal of Charlemont, Emery Tomlinson of Black River High School, St. Elizabeth. May their souls rest in peace, and may their families be comforted. I'd also like to pay tribute to those teachers, students, and parents that we have lost since I last spoke in the debate in 2021, whether it was as a direct result of COVID-19 or not. Madam Speaker, the last 12 months have been traumatic for many Jamaicans. So allow me to lift my proverbial hat to our teachers, guidance counselors, who have had to quickly improve or learn new skills to meet demands of a changing teaching and learning environment. Today, Madam Speaker, I am called to make a response to the budget presented, and in particular, to look at where we are and how we proceed in education. Let me repeat what has often been said in this debate, but remains true. The current budget has not adequately reflected the urgency of the education crisis in which we find ourselves as a country. The leader of opposition is spot on when he says that Jamaica is a deeply unequal society, divided into the haves and the have-nots, and that this budget will perpetuate and indeed worsen that inequality. End of quote. Many Jamaicans caught on the wrong side of this equality meter are feeling the full force of the inequality and unfairness being meted out to them. Madam Speaker, as we on this side engage Jamaicans all across the country, we see a clear picture emerging, the need for fundamental changes in our society. They tell us that they want to live in a country where everyone can achieve a reasonable quality of life, where everyone, not just a few, can truly say, Jamaica nice. This, Madam Speaker, is their dream, and the current circumstances demand that the government of Jamaica cushion the crisis and take their proverbial boots of the necks of our families, our children, and our future. I want to talk a little bit about the current state of education. In 2004, the Davies report outlined what was needed to achieve education Vision 2030. In 2019, the Patterson report has echoed similar findings and recommendations. While there have been some improvements, the truth is that the system has been stymied by slow or no implementation, underfunding, and lack of resources of the central ministry that prevent the regions and schools from innovating and creating new and exciting pathways of learning and achievement for all our children. Failure to implement some of the most revolutionary aspects of the Davies report has led to the underperformance of the system. And I want to remind you, Madam Speaker, that this reformation of which we speak, envisaged by Davies, has not taken place over the past 17 years. 11 of these years were during your government's term in office. Yes, under your watch. Madam Speaker, in order to build back better, which is a term that we have been using, I want to raise 3 imperatives found in the joint UNESCO-UNICEF World Bank report, The State of the Global Crisis, A Path to Recovery. First is about addressing the data crisis. The lack of easily accessible data that is current, organized, and can be used for the basis of planning for our children is worrying. This is indeed one of the gifted opportunities that the Ministry of Education has simply missed. The second is addressing the socio-emotional issues as a priority. And in fairness, I think that promoting well-being and psychosocial support has been one of those words that we have been hearing so often. In fact, teachers tell me that sometimes if they hear that word one more time, they are going to scream. So yes, we have been talking about that. But the report takes it a little bit further, indicating that teachers need to be adequately equipped and trained to support the holistic needs of children. We believe that all our teachers, quite frankly, should be supported and prepared to offer remedial education, provide mental health and psychosocial support, to deal with the emotional and behavioral crises in our classroom. They should have also the opportunities to acquire advanced skills in online teaching and learning. The third issue really is about meeting the need for evidence-based strategies to drive learning recovery program. Building back better again requires that countries, and I quote here, measure how effective their policy responses are at mitigating learning loss and analyze their impact on equity, and then use that to keep improving. And I think that we haven't heard anything about that. We haven't heard a discussion on the policy responses and how they have been measured, where they have fallen short, where they have been doing well, so that we can also use that to improve as we go. Not at the end, but as we go. That is the importance of data. Madam Speaker, under PNP government, we would certainly find ways as a matter of priority to respond to these imperatives and cushion the crisis faced by our teachers in the education sector. We have heard your concerns, teachers, about working conditions, about being treated with respect. We understand the importance of good health benefits, especially now. We understand the importance of your NHT benefits, and woe be to ye who would want to change that. And yes, that car concession too, we know what it means to you as a teacher. And so we want to say that we support your call for the government to recognize your worth and your sacrifice in the ongoing negotiations. And to remember, whereas these benefits might not mean much to some people, to our teachers in the field, the only way they can own a house is with that NHT benefit. The only way they can buy a car is because they have that concession at one go. So yes, today, I stand right there with our teachers saying how important these benefits are, and that in the ongoing negotiations that we are calling on the government to listen to what you are saying so that your needs can be addressed. The Patterson report indicates that based on the 2019 PEP results, 41% of those sitting the exams passed mathematics. 41%. 49% passed science. 49%. And 55% passed language arts. A deeper look at the 2019 PEP performance reveals an even more harrowing story of underperformance. 33%, 1 in 3, cannot read or can barely do so. 56% cannot write or can barely write. And 58% cannot find information on a topic or can hardly do so. 58%. Madam Speaker, with these statistics, we don't need a crystal ball to tell us that secondary education is also in trouble. In fact, the World Bank report of 2018 also indicated that at 18 years old, our high school graduate would have spent 11.7 years in pre-primary, primary, and secondary school. But when that period is adjusted for quality of learning, that those 11.7 years would really be the equivalent of 7.2 years. We're going to talk about that, because I'm sure many believe that it's all the fault of teachers, but we're going to talk about that. One of the most damning statements made in the Patterson report which I think has probably shaken many of us out of the denial in which we have lived for far too long, is this one. And I quote, "Far too many students at the end of primary school remain illiterate and innumerate, and most leave secondary school with no marketable skills." End of quote. In fact, Madam Speaker, as I speak here, I'm going to ask the member who keeps saying teaching, 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 to give me a break and allow me to speak. And I say that and start there because it is this kind of disrespect that our teachers talk about. No, it is, and they talk about disrespect coming to them from so many different levels. And I believe the Parliament is not where it should come from. I really believe that. As I say, Madam Speaker, what I've just outlined is a far cry from where we would hope to be, and certainly not in keeping with the vision that we all espouse. Naturally, this low performance also affects what happens at tertiary level. The truth is, we should all be ashamed of the figures in this, our 60th year of independence, in a country led by a post-independent Prime Minister. Madam Speaker, this dismal but accurate picture painted by the Education and Transformation Commission is even more alarming when we consider that this is pre-pandemic analysis and does not take into account what the ravages of the pandemic would have occasioned. So what are the lessons we learned from the pandemic? Our principals and teachers on the ground have been sharing their experiences during the pandemic. Multilateral organizations and other institutions have invested in research during this period, and their reports are available. When we compare the findings, we see a convergence around some fundamental issues. The inequality, Madam Speaker, the inequality wedge has widened. But many of our teachers, principals, and parents have come up with creative and effective solutions. And we have learned some things. We have learned that online learning just did not work for the majority of our students, because simply children from vulnerable families are less likely to benefit from online learning than their peers because of issues around connectivity, around availability of devices, around parental or family support. It's just a fact. Parents and teachers and caregivers of younger children and children with disabilities often found that there was no consistent policy responses to their education and their development needs. There is an urgent need for sustainable, flexible teacher training opportunities to enable our teachers to competently and confidently navigate the new landscape. This is what we have learned. And I'm aware that some of that is actually being done. So I'm not suggesting that nothing is being done. But I'm talking about the situation that actually needs to be addressed. For the first 18 to 24 months of this pandemic, the Ministry of Education's message was that 60% or more of our students were doing well. Madam Speaker, the opposition had always been very interested in that 40%, 4 out of every 10 children who did not do well. And we are also interested in getting some clean data about the performance of the 60% of those children who are said to have done well. And Madam Speaker, at this point, would also wish to see all of that data analyzed by gender, disaggregated by gender. Because we know that our system has underperformed, and particularly so for our boys. And I think we need to know what the reality is. No more half-truths and being economical with the truth, because our boys are in a precarious state and we must rescue them. Madam Speaker, we have been asking for greater detail around the 120,000 students that were reported lost to education. The Sunday Gleaner of 29th of June headline read, "Missing Students. Government mulls legal action as 27,000 children still absent from the classroom." Madam Speaker, I am the first one to insist that parents have a responsibility in the education of their children. The first one. And I make no bones about that. But in this case, I want us to go behind the reasons for their absences, where we have children employed and earning, helping to defray the costs of providing for the family. What do you say to a student who says he's not registered for an external exam anyway, so why should he go back to school when he's actually earning? What do you say to parents who have lost their jobs and their daily hustle just cannot put food on the table, but their children are now picking up the slack? Can you imagine how distressed these parents must be? This certainly could not have been the dream they had for young Chelsea at 14 to be out of school and pregnant, nor for young Raheem to be rubbing out him and middle with the youths around the corner. How wicked and uncaring can this government be, such that the first thought is about penalizing the parent? What about providing guidance and support to these youngsters? What about cushioning the crisis for them and their families and helping them lift their head above water? What agencies have been asked to intervene to deal with the specific circumstances? Madam Speaker, the financial position of many families is dire, and it cannot be taken lightly. The involvement of these youngsters in illicit activities cannot go unattended, and intervention is required. But that is long before we get to be talking about penal action. Madam Speaker, I am extremely impressed in all of this by some principals and teachers in Portland. I'm not sure if you heard of the discussion, but they report that 90% of their students have returned to school. Here is a lesson for the Ministry of Education and other schools. The principals report that, yes, they do have some schools, some children who are still lost to the system and who have actually refused to return. And they explain that the majority of those students are students from grades 10 to 13 who are now earning, having acquired some skills that they are putting to use while they were in school. So, Madam Speaker, it is not just about what's on the face of it. It is about the times in which we are, how difficult it is for the majority of our families, in particular those in lower socioeconomic situations, and what we as a government can do to make life a little easier for them. So let me look at the allocation in the budget. Madam Speaker, it is true that the percentage of the budget spent on education meets international benchmarks. But what is also true is that the poor performance at different levels is great cause for concern. The opposition believes that it is important to identify all contributing factors to ensure appropriate policy responses. If we believe, for example, that the teachers are the only ones to blame, then that is where our action will be, and that would be a travesty. We believe, for example, that weak performance is not only about teacher qualification and the quality of teaching in our classrooms, it is also about ensuring that these teachers have the needed tools. It is also about getting value for money, cutting waste from agencies, and ensuring that those who lead understand their fiduciary responsibilities. And the number of agencies from which we have seen those reports from the AG is another story. We'll come back to that. Madam Speaker, I examined the capital expenditure budget for education. And, you know, I was moved to compare the allocation of this important sector to the one of national security. And when I looked at it, over the past 3 budget years, the government of Jamaica has budgeted $20.8 billion on national security, and at the same time putting a measly $2.7 billion into education infrastructure. These numbers make it very, very clear where our priority lies, and clearly that is not education. In fact, the public expenditure review of the education sector in Jamaica in 2021 indicates that over the last 6 years, capital expenditure in education has been 2% of the total education spending, and that is very low by any comparison. Yeah, no, I'm talking now of the budget and what is the capital expenditure of the education budget. So it's 2% of the education budget that goes to capital expenditure. And that by any benchmark, international and otherwise, is very low. The vast differences in infrastructure, and part of the reason why this is so concerning is that we know that the vast differences in infrastructural provision of classroom spaces, science labs, technical and vocational facilities, bathroom and sport facilities, and co-curricular activities all contribute to lingering inequalities in education. Madam Speaker, when this government had the resources to invest in educational infrastructure, to transform the system, what did they spend the money on? I guess I've answered that question already. We saw where the billions went. If you were listening, you would have heard. Madam Speaker, this year's allocation to the capital budget of $1.3 billion funds ongoing programs, some dating as far back as 2015. Necessary programs, but these are not new programs. In fact, some of these programs, which would include additional classrooms, fencing, admin blocks, auditorium, bathrooms, and so on, were some that were not done last year and are being done this year. And they don't include any new project contemplated since the advent of COVID-19 and as a response to the needs and the gaps that we saw. We have not seen any new initiatives being funded that will put us on the road to resetting education and eliminating the systemic bias and inequality. In fact, the Patterson report on investment in the infrastructure of tertiary level institutions misses also the mark by far, because they suggest that to correct extremely low capital investment over the past decades, a capital investment fund should be established and seeded with $2 billion to be distributed through competition, with emphasis on changes in the use of technology in the administration of institutions as well as the delivery programs. We on this side believe that there needs to be capital investment in tertiary level institutions long before any argument about competitive activities are introduced. And if the government wants to know where to get the funds from, just look at the national security budget line. This same public expenditure report recommended support for health and safety requirements for reopening school. Also for what they call a re-enrollment campaign and outreach activities for those that were disengaged or lost to the system. They also thought that there should be targeted support for the most at-risk students. Targeted support for the most at-risk students. That there should be a program to mitigate and prevent dropout and facilitation of remedial education to minimize learning loss. When they looked at all of these activities, Madam Speaker, they put the cost of that at around $2.4 billion to $3.9 billion per year for the next year or two. At the same time, so I mean, just look at what they say we need and look at where we are with the addition to our budget, and we'll see what is happening. At the same time, Madam Speaker, they estimated that the cost of inaction could be as much as $828 billion. Madam Speaker, I am sure you would agree with me that everything about this budget in relation to education spells inaction. So we know what is down the road for us. During the Finance Committee that we had, while we were examining the 22-23 budget, I was pleased to see an additional $1 billion to the recurrent expenditure in education. But when I sought clarity from the minister, she was very clear that this simply reflected increased remuneration and compensation to staff and pensioners. Well, I said, let that sink in. I note also, Madam Speaker, that the early childhood sector has been allocated $5.1 billion in the budget, an increase of $278 million. Almost 70% of that is directed at staff salaries and associated costs, and there is another almost 30% that is directed at salaries, nutrition, and materials. But the truth is that that sum, that additional 30%, is actually less than it was in the year before that. So I just want you to understand how we see education and the crisis in which we are. Madam Speaker, there is no new funding for investing in and developing this foundational sector that is currently falling apart.
You may pause at that juncture. House Leader, members' time for speaking has expired.
Madam Speaker, the member's time having expired, I beg to move for a suspension of the standing order to allow her to finish the presentation. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
The question is that the standing orders be suspended to enable the member to continue her speech to its conclusion, notwithstanding the time limit on speeches. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. As an administration, we will build a true and genuine partnership with our teachers and our principals, understanding that nothing we can do can supersede the knowledge and experience in the field and their ability to find solutions for the problems that they face. We will ensure a culturally relevant curriculum in line with the modern world, technologically driven with knowledge-based systems and STEAM curriculum. As we look to celebrate 60 years as an independent country, in this, the decade for people of African descent, focused on recognition, justice, and development, we make a solemn pledge to work with all stakeholders to ensure that we eliminate the systemic inequities premised on social class and shadism that prevent our children from fulfilling their full potential. Madam Speaker, based on our education vision articulated for Jamaica 2030, the average student who completes high school would have acquired work certification, mastery of standard Jamaican English, a foreign language, mathematics, a science subject, and information technology. That student would also have participated in sports, the arts, would be aware and proud of our local culture, and possess excellent interpersonal skills and workplace attitudes. End of quote. Madam Speaker, I would understand if you were excited hearing me express this vision. In fact, so was I when I read it, until I stepped back into reality. This is a well-articulated and sound vision for Jamaica. But the truth is, we're not ready. We're not ready. So let me talk about some of the challenges in realizing that vision. One of the major challenges facing the sector is the government's failure to communicate, consult, and engage meaningfully and take advice from stakeholders. I mean, this is not the first time I'll be saying it, and I will keep saying it until I believe that there's an understanding and what meaningful engagement is. Because the result of not doing so, is that many principals and teachers feel excluded and marginalized. They feel as if their efforts and sacrifices are not valued. Madam Speaker, any government worth its salt must be far more empathetic and proactive in making important decisions affecting our children. And they would be in a position to do that if they were really listening to the practitioners on the ground. They would know when to bring back children face to face. They would understand whether or not to hinge reopening school on the vaccination of students, given a dismally low vaccination rate in the rest of the country. They will be able to engage our teachers and students in the summer in a way that could have been a little bit more seamless. And then they would also pay them on time. They would also be able to make timely changes in the PEP assessment and even in terms of the timetable for CSEC exams. So what do we need to do? Madam Speaker, while there are many issues that need to be addressed, I will confine the rest of the presentation, especially given the time and your generosity, to 3 key areas that require urgent attention: early childhood education, closing the inequality and inequity gaps in education, and making tertiary education truly accessible. So let's talk about early childhood education. You know, the World Bank report titled "Acting Now to Protect the Human Capital of Our Children," done in 2018, pointed to a learning crisis in Jamaica, with high enrollment but poor performance in relation to primary and pre-primary education. You know, we all are acutely aware that the first 1,000 days, 0 to 3 years, of a child's life may well determine the next 80 years of their existence, and that access to quality early childhood stimulation programs would therefore be very critical. Madam Speaker, we now know that while boasting of an impressive 93.4% of our 3 to 5 year olds attending early childhood institutions, and here I quote, "the quality of care and training is unsatisfactory." The Patterson report indicated that early literacy and numeracy problems were identified in about 20%, with boys, I repeat that, with boys, children attending infant schools and departments, and children on paths of particular concern. I keep saying that because whatever we do needs to be aimed at those who are most at risk, and we have to identify them appropriately so that we can do that. But it is for these reasons, Madam Speaker, for these reasons, that the Leader of Opposition, Mr. Mark Golding, has indicated that we are committed to making significant investments in early childhood education. Because where you live and therefore where you go to school should not by itself determine your success or failure in life. For those who live in more affluent communities, you might not understand what that means. But for those in rural, poor rural areas and in other areas, we understand the quality of the education, in particular early childhood institutions in those areas really, really need our undivided attention. Let's talk about one of the factors that really impinge on what we're talking about, and that's nutrition. So the UNICEF report of 2020 indicated that families were eating less meals per day and actually having less food per meal. And this indicates to us on this side that the visionary implementation of the nutrition products is still needed and should continue to be provided, especially in our early childhood education sector. Yeah, no, I couldn't find nothing else to buy that. But I just want to tell you, recall, Madam Speaker, that there were strident and effective efforts made by former Minister Thwaites to increase the funding and provision of food for our children, such that each early childhood child would have at least a breakfast a day. What a crisis now, because of the misuse and misappropriation of funds from this very important agency. From our children's mouth to the pockets of the rich and the well-connected. Madam Speaker, you're swimming with a bun and water. I gather that this is what, in many cases? Yes, pipe water. No, not this one. I couldn't carry the pipe water, so I just took out the bottled water. And I want to go further because even the allocation from PATH in terms of providing meals for our children cannot buy the bun. Much less, yeah. And you know we like to eat the bun and cheese. You can't buy a bun and cheese. You can't buy a bun and you can't buy a patty. No, you can't buy a patty. You can't buy a patty. They have to go cut the patty in two so it can share for the kids. That is what it can do. And schools get patty at a reduced price, so they don't pay the $2.50, but that still cannot buy the patty for the lunch. I believe that these are some practical things that we have to look at in terms of what our schools are going to provide for our children. Nutrition products, I gather, send in the bun, not even milk no more, water. Because they bottle their own water, nutrition products, water, and send it. Minister, that is what I'm getting from the road and from the ground. Check it out and let us know. And for those who believe it's okay, it's not. The Minister of Health will talk to you about what that is doing for our children, in school. So I leave that there because I know that Jamaicans know exactly what I'm talking about. I wanted to talk a little bit about funding, Madam Speaker. I am well aware, remember I'm still on the early childhood education sector. I am well aware that this year has been proclaimed the year of early childhood development. And I think that that was an excellent initiative from the Early Childhood Commission. And I suspect as well that there may very well be funding being sourced from donors and other agencies. It will therefore be very important to ensure that, again, there is transparency and equity in what is being done. I note also that although many schools have been closed because of failure to meet the Early Childhood Commission standards, or even as a result of the proprietors' inability to keep their institutions going under the challenges of COVID-19, I've not heard any talk of going into a granting aid relationship with these institutions. Neither is there talk of building out infant schools or infant departments sufficient to cushion this particular crisis in the sector. Let's talk also about teacher development. Because, Madam Speaker, there is understandable concern by many teachers and members of our society regarding the definition of teacher in the Jamaica Teaching Council Bill. Since it describes or defines a teacher as someone who has, and I quote, successfully completed a bachelor's degree in education or its equivalent, or alternatively, a first degree with a postgraduate diploma in education, end of quote. Accepting that the intention of the bill is, inter alia, and again I quote, to contribute to improving the quality of teaching and learning in Jamaica, end quote, and not to exclude those who are currently practicing, who may have these qualifications, but who have given invaluable service, then more would have to be done during the transition to support and facilitate professional development of these teachers. And that must be expressly stated in the bill, since it isn't there just now. I believe all of us would be aware that for many of those teachers who would not be meeting these standards, they are not earning enough to be able to pay for their own professional development while managing their other responsibilities. They just don't earn enough. They don't. And therefore, I believe, as is done with most other professions when we're doing things like these, that there needs to be a proper grandfather or grandmother clause. Madam Speaker, the work of Dr. Rose Davies, may her soul continue to rest in peace, who designed the NVQJ levels 1 to 3 programs and the associate degree for early childhood practitioners can be ignored. The Ministry of Education and Youth should build on the best of our past, not destroy it or remove it or ignore it. And that's what we're asking to happen. Jamaica can count, and I say this confidently, that Jamaica can count on the next PNP government to ensure creative pathways which encourage, facilitate, and support teachers' professional development and credentialing. Because, Madam Speaker, this is what is required. This is how we power the dream, Madam Speaker. And we therefore commit to address the adequacy of staffing in the sector that would allow for a better pupil-teacher ratio, to provide sufficient guidance counselors and social workers and psychologists, to provide psychosocial support for our children, their parents, and for the teachers themselves, to facilitate pathways to professional development of our teachers and our caregivers. In fact, you know what they say to me? They say in terms of the professional development, they want even more than that. They want to learn some ways of financial management so that they can understand how to make the most of the little they have. They are being paid so little just now that they're trying to see how else can they earn money, because they are of the view that they can't earn it selling pencil and stuff at school anymore. And these are the things that we need to ensure that they are provided with. So let's talk about ending educational apartheid and closing the inequality and inequity gap. We have seen over the last 6 years the undiluted display of a primary principle by this government, that of self-interest. And because you are in government, the champion of this particular principle has fostered stark and growing inequality and the survival of the fittest, to the detriment of and deprivation of the most vulnerable, the rural poor, the urban poor, and their children. This also impacts the middle class, especially those just entering professional class of teachers, accountants, doctors, lawyers, and entrepreneurs. This has resulted in further worsening the inequalities and inequities in our education system and in our society. When we talk about equality, we talk about affording every student the same opportunities to do well. But equity means making sure that our policies provide every student the support they need to take full advantage of those opportunities. And check our record, because we are well aware of the importance of equality and equity and making sure that that is what drives our policy. One of the things we think that needs to happen is to strengthen the school, home, and community connection, and that engagement and partnership. Partnerships with parents and communities are essential in building a sense of mutual responsibility for children's success in the education system. Studies have affirmed that cooperation between schools, homes, and communities can actually lead to academic achievement for students, as well as reforms in education. Successful students have strong academic support from their involved parents. And schools where students are learning and achieving, even when located in low socioeconomic neighborhoods, have a strong and positive school-home relationship. And you would understand that that relationship can only be built when there is mutual respect, where Parents respect school, school respects home, and we believe that there is value being brought to the table from all stakeholders. In fact, I think it is conceivable that the strong relationship between schools, homes, and communities could have resulted in greater and earlier successes in the search for those 120,000 missing students. Yeah. I spoke to you earlier, yes? I spoke to you earlier about some schools. This is not Portland now. Some other schools that I have actually seen with retention of 90% or more of their students. How did they achieve it, you ask? Simple. They just ignored the Ministry of Education's advice to close schools and found ways of observing the protocols while engaging their students. The lesson here is simple. A clear case for delegating some of the decisions to principals with a better understanding of the circumstances in which they operate. Schools where the children come from the neighborhood, they don't take buses, there are no cases there, yeah? And so you can, if you can find the facilities to be able to have them in small groups and with the protocols, that's what you have. Listen, I'm just telling you what I know. Don't shoot the messenger. The opposition will therefore encourage efforts of parents and communities to support schools so that they can make a direct impact for the achievement of a successful education system. And we don't have to do that when we become the next administration. No, we start from now by encouraging our members and our members of parliament to carry this message about the importance of the engagement and the partnership between home and school. Madam Speaker, as I talk about closing the digital divide, allow me a minute here. As the distribution of tablets and devices continue, we trust that priority attention, again, is being given to the most vulnerable, that students on path, rural poor, and our boys is really where we are. But do you know what I'm really concerned about? I'm concerned about the number of students who indicate that they got a tablet which is no longer working. The reality is, Minister, through you, Madam Speaker, that teachers sometimes have had to find creative ways of giving access to 3 children and 1 device by installing Google Classroom for all 3 from different classes, even though the Ministry of Education forbids it. Because they see the need, and thankfully they have responded. But, Madam Speaker, a local response, that's what we call our local response to a local need. And this is really about cushioning the crisis at this individual level. We have spoken a lot about universal literacy and numeracy. The opposition is on record calling for a comprehensive literacy program that includes teaching children to read and operate effectively in all dimensions of language and literacy. And in this regard, we fully support the official position of the UNESCO since 1953 that children should be educated in the language of the home, their native language. Hubert Devonish of the Department of Languages, University of the West Indies, Mona, has pointed to this having and I quote here, a positive effect on children's concept of self, their literacy and broader communication skills, critical thinking and creativity. Once these attributes are fully developed, children transfer much easier to a foreign or non-native language. To build back better and stronger, we would have expected to see additional allocation to deal with adequately funding services targeting students on path or those at risk, especially our boys, ensure specially targeted diagnostic assessment to guide an appropriately targeted individualized learning program, and to help our students deal with and rise above the challenges, including deaths from COVID and otherwise, neglect, domestic abuse, and all of that. And part of what I am talking about here is we cannot expect to be using the same programs that were there in terms of dealing with literacy and remediation and expect to get a different result. We must see something different being done in those areas to guarantee a different result, because so far they have not yielded the results we crave. Madam Speaker, we believe that these initiatives can be implemented if Government of Jamaica joins up services across ministries, integrates stakeholders, and eliminates the waste and mismanagement we have seen over the past 6 years. So let me finally just deal with higher education. And I won't be much longer here. In spite of the merger into heart of the Jamaica Foundation for Lifelong Learning, the National Youth Service, and the apprenticeship program, the numbers are still down. Many believe that the PM's cavalier statement about importing workers should have referenced the failures of HEART under his watch. There seems to be a serious lack of attention to or understanding of the role of these institutions can play in meeting the demand for skilled workers. For over a decade, HEART installed workshops and labs in secondary schools under the HEART Ministry of Education program called Rationalization of TVET in Secondary Schools. This prepared the infrastructure to support the Education Minister Thwaite's policy to enable all fifth form school leavers to earn their required CSEC subjects and NVQJ or CVQ occupational work certification, enabling our graduates school-to-work transition. We have seen some recent proposals about the direction of vocational training and certification. Let's be clear. TVET operates using competency-based education and training, principles and methodology, and the precise assessment of learning outcomes and demonstrated competencies measured against standards set by industry. Neither the Overseas Examinations Commission nor the University Council of Jamaica has the institutional ability or staff expertise in CBET to perform assessment and certification of persons and accreditation of programs and institutions. In addition, we have heard nothing of the details about addressing the ingrained bias against vocational studies and how this new oversight would work. Prior to, and even while the Patterson report was going on, was being done, we saw the thievery of much-needed funds from the Ministry of Education through the HEART Trust Fund, contributions from employers of Jamaica to provide training and certification of workers. No wonder the figures for certification of workers are so low. I want to talk a little bit. And as I close, Madam Speaker, I want to talk a little bit about high schools and their role in student performance as we look at higher education. I think the point has been solidly made about the low performance of our high school graduates. As I speak today, I have in front of me those students who have graduated from high school without the requisite minimum 5 CSEC subjects, including maths and English. And I want to speak on behalf of them, that majority, whose families have done the best they could under the circumstances, hoping that education would have been the weapon with which they could have defeated intergenerational poverty. That's what I want to talk about. And in talking about them, I want to talk a little bit about the relationship between tertiary participation rates and prosperity and innovation. Madam Speaker, last year, I spoke about the interesting relationship between tertiary participation rates and per capita income and murder rates. So I will not go through the figures nor the numbers here because I did speak about them last time, but in very simple terms.
Member, I'm sorry to disturb your presentation, but it would be wonderful to have an appreciation how long closing would be.
Another 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Member. Appreciate it.
Not at all, Madam Speaker. In simple terms, the more people who are tertiary trained in a country, the more that country produces in terms of goods and services, the more each person earns. And instructively and critically for us in Jamaica, Madam Speaker, it also means lower levels of crime, especially murders, and higher levels of problem solving and improved quality of life through innovation and new technologies. So if we want to talk about prosperity for more than just a few, then we have to make sure that tertiary education is a real option for the everyday high school graduate. If education is to truly be that weapon with which we fight poverty, then tertiary education and training must be more accessible to our young people, low-income and working parents, and this has to be done in a way that does not weigh them down with debts before they have even begun. We must broaden access to more Jamaicans. I'm not going to go through some of the proposals that the leader of the opposition has placed on the table about Fresh Start, about what he would do in terms of reorganizing the Student Loan Bureau. But I do want to speak about a medium term, the relationship between community colleges and teachers' colleges and universities, and even how our sixth form could become a bridge to this tertiary education. I also want to not necessarily go in detail, because I did last time as well, speak about the establishment of a Child Opportunity Trust Fund. And the idea is really very simple, and I give credit to Dr. Kenny Thompson for placing it on the table, where the government of Jamaica would open an account in the name of each child 1 year after birth and seed that account with the equivalent of $100 US. This account would then be financed by a contribution from parents, and in the case of the wards of the state, by the state, to the tune of about 100 Jamaican dollars per day for 18 years. At the end of 18 years, each child would have access to those funds to purchase their education locally or set up a business. We submit, and this is not, Madam Speaker, this is really not expensive. We're talking about less than 2/3 of 1%. And if we use this year's budget, that is $600 million. That is $600 billion. Less than, remember that debushing scandal? Is about the same amount. That's what we're talking about. Yesterday's educational failures are today's social and economic problems and challenges. We need to commit to place education as our top priority and keep it there until we have resolved that problem. If we want to create a Jamaica which is safe, one which is truly prosperous, and where people want to live and do business, then our education must produce well-rounded and qualified individuals. Madam Speaker, we believe that the issues and priorities that I've raised today can be addressed if the government just join up services. We have seen in the past, the calls made by the opposition to gently defer the pace of reduction of our debt this year by a mere 2% of GDP. The leader of opposition, Mr. Mark Golding, has made the suggestion and has been urging the government to take it on board. This suggestion could provide the needed fiscal space for programs I've raised here today. Madam Speaker, the opposition is committed to ensuring that our promise to provide education at pre-primary and primary level, as articulated in the Charter of Fundamental Rights and Freedom, is guaranteed to all Jamaicans. But we must go even further and end this inequity and the great divide that perpetuates such vastly different results in our secondary schools. Tertiary education is not a luxury and can no longer remain the preserve of a mere privileged 27%. Every family in Jamaica should count on at least one tertiary graduate. This is what we mean when we speak of education powering the dream. Prosperity, real prosperity, then becomes possible, not just for a few, Madam Speaker, but for everyday Jamaicans, willing and facilitated to be the best they can be, and education becomes a pathway that leads them there. Thank you.
House Leader, starting with recommittal. House Leader.
Exactly. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I would like to indicate how enriched the Parliament in general has been as a result of these excellent presentations that have been provided by the members of this Honourable House during the course of the debate. And I'm not closing this evening, I'm merely indicating that this is the last opposition spokesperson for the sectoral debate. And we gave her a little latitude, but we urge her in future to do a little better time management so that we can, in fact, complete the business of the House within the time. But I must say, today was a very strong day, Madam Speaker, and I really want to particularly commend the speakers and our Minister of National Security, Member Daley, who I listened to from my office, and she knows that I was there with her, but our able deputy House leader sat through that process, and of course, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke. Madam Speaker, I now move for the recommittal of the item announcements. Suspension of the standing orders?
Yes.
No, not yet. I'm going to suspend the debate afterwards. No. Okay. Madam Speaker, I'm guided by the clerk of the House, as I always am. I beg to move that the sectoral debate be suspended until Tuesday, February 7th at 2 p.m., and then to be continued on Wednesday, June 8th, when the final three speakers will be the Minister of Gender, Culture, Entertainment and Sports, the Honourable Olivia Babsey-Grange, and the newly minted Minister of Legal Affairs and Legislative Matters, the Honourable Marlene Malaku-Ford. And then that will be followed by my closing of the debate.
The question is that the sectoral debate be suspended until June 7, 2022 at 2 p.m. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. Recommittal.
Madam Speaker, I now move for the recommittal of the item announcements to enable the clerk to table two documents brought by the Minister of National Security.
The question is for recommittal of the item announcements to be read by the clerk. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it.
Also laid on the table of the House today are Citizen Security Handbook, Advancing Citizen Security, Building Resilience, Foundations for Sustainable Development, and a slate of national security accomplishments for 2021-2022.
Thank you. House Leader.
Madam Speaker, it is not intended to do any further business for the day. I therefore invite you to adjourn this Honourable House until Tuesday, June 7th at 2 p.m. at the George William Gordon House. May it please you, Madam Speaker.
The question is that the House do now adjourn for until next Tuesday, June 7, 2022 at 2 p.m. sharp. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. This Honourable House now stands adjourned.